Chapter 30. Just as the thought flashed through his mind, Li Yundong's fist abruptly changed direction and smashed into the side of Lu Chuan's head. Everyone in the classroom felt as if someone had taken a sledgehammer and smashed it against the wall. The floor shook from the impact. When Li Yundong pulled his fist back, some of the sharp-eyed students gasped at the sight of Li Yundong's fist smashing into the wall. Li Yundong tossed Lu Chuan aside. He saw Su Chan lunging at him, but he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to control himself and hurt Su Chan. "Don't come any closer," he yelled. Then he dashed out of the classroom like a madman. Su Chan was shocked and anxious. She jumped from the last row of the classroom to the front row. Her body was as light as a swallow on the water. The students around her were in an uproar. "No way. Qinggong? Holy shit. Are my eyes playing tricks on me?" As Su Chan chased Li Yundong out of the classroom, the students in the classroom began to talk about it. It was very lively. Only Zhou Qin was left standing there in a daze. No one knew what she was thinking, but she suddenly took a step forward and chased after Su Chan. Fortunately, Li Yundong didn't run too far. He just rushed into a men's bathroom not far from the classroom. There was a student who was taking a dump in the washroom. When he heard the commotion outside, he opened the door in curiosity and fear. He saw a man with a face full of blood standing beside the sink, madly using his head and fists to hit the marble countertop. The thudding sounds were like the beating of a drum. The student was so scared that he didn't even have time to wipe his butt. He pulled up his pants and ran out. When Zhou Qin chased Li Yundong to the men's room, she stood at the door. She wanted to go in, but she was a shy girl, so she was embarrassed. But then she heard Li Yundong's painful moans coming from the bathroom. She was so anxious that she didn't know what to do. While she was running around in circles, she suddenly saw a boy running out of the bathroom with his pants up. Zhou Qin immediately grabbed the boy and asked, "Student, what happened inside?" When the boy pulled up his pants, he remembered that he hadn't wiped his butt. He was already very depressed, and now he was stopped by the girl. The pain in his heart could not be expressed in words. He angrily broke away from Zhou Qin's hand and shouted, "If you want to know what's going on, you can go in and see for yourself." As he spoke, he fled as though he was flying. Zhou Qin frowned, stamped her feet, gritted her teeth, and rushed into the men's room. As soon as Zhou Qin entered the men's bathroom, she saw that Li Yundong's face was covered in blood, and the clothes on his upper body were soaked in blood. He was like a raging Hulk. He punched the mirror forward with both fists, smashing it into pieces. Then he punched down again, smashing the marble countertop. Zhou Qin was so shocked that her face turned pale, and her mind went blank. Is he still human? How could a human have such great strength? Su Chan had been observing Li Yundong's movements calmly. Seeing an opportunity, she suddenly flew forward and patted the back of Li Yundong's neck. Li Yundong's body stiffened, and then he suddenly twisted his body and punched behind him. The punch was so fierce that even though Zhou Qin was 3 or 4 meters away, she still felt a fierce wind blowing on her face, causing her beautiful hair to flutter. Like a spirit snake, Su Chan circled to the other side of Li Yundong, took out a piece of her hair with one hand, and then tied it next to Li Yundong's ear. The hair was like a golden needle, firmly pricking the Tianzhu acupoint next to Li Yundong's ear. Li Yundong's body trembled, and finally, he fell softly to the ground and passed out. Su Chan let out a sigh of relief and put Li Yundong's body on her back. Only then did she turn around and stare coldly at the dumbfounded Zhou Qin. "If you dare say a word about what you just saw," she said, "I'll take your life even if I have to travel thousands of miles to the ends of the earth." There was a terrifying murderous intent in Su Chan's cold words. But Zhou Qin was the daughter of a wealthy family, so how could she be threatened so easily? Zhou Qin came back to her senses and raised an eyebrow. She was just about to say something when Su Chan suddenly jumped out of the window with Li Yundong on her back. Zhou Qin was scared out of her wits. "Ah," she screamed. "We're on the 5th floor." Zhou Qin rushed to the window and saw that Su Chan was carrying Li Yundong on her back, unscathed, and had disappeared like a gust of wind. Zhou Qin stood in front of the window in a daze. She didn't even notice that a boy had entered the room behind her. She stared at Su Chan and Li Yundong's disappearing silhouettes in a daze. Her body trembled slightly. She couldn't tell if it was from shock, fear, panic, or a trace of excitement and fanaticism that lurked in the depths of her soul. "Who the hell are you, Li Yundong?" Su Chan flew back home with Li Yundong on her back. She looked calm on the outside, but deep down she was nervous and regretful. She couldn't stop blaming herself for not telling Li Yundong not to practice qi in public. She carefully looked at Li Yundong's face, touched his pulse with her hand, and then felt the direction of Li Yundong's breath. At this time the qi in Li Yundong's body was either rushing upward to attack the Baihui, Xinting, Tianchong and Qingling acupoints in his brain, completely turning him into a fool, or it was attacking the foot Shaoyin kidney meridian and foot Taiyang bladder meridian in the lower half of his body, making him paralyzed and unable to get out of bed. Su Chan's heart ached at the sight of Li Yundong. She found the bathroom, grabbed a few clean towels and wiped the blood off Li Yundong's face. Then she pressed one hand on the Huagai acupoint on Li Yundong's chest, and the other on the Qihai acupoint. Su Chan had once heard from her master that the Huagai acupoint was located in the middle of the two intersecting lobes of the human lungs. It was located above the heart and below the throat. This acupoint was the only place where the qi of the human body flowed upstream. It could be said that this acupoint was that unparalleled key between the two capitals and the throat. When a person was angry, they would feel a surge of qi rushing to the top of their head. This surge of qi originated from the Qihai acupoint, broke through the Huagai acupoint, passed through the Xinting acupoint and finally reached the Baihui acupoint. This surge of qi would confuse the normal flow of qi in the human brain. This was why people often lost their rationality when they were angry. Some people were good at cultivating their bodies and minds. When they were about to lose their temper, they could forcibly suppress their anger. This was all thanks to the strong barrier that was the Huagai acupoint. Su Chan's pressing on these two acupoints was equivalent to blocking the surging qi of Li Yundong's body from rushing up and down. She slowly released a burst of pure yin qi from her palm into Li Yundong's body. As soon as this qi came into contact with Li Yundong's qi, the pure yin qi met the yuanyang qi of a boy. The two instantly melted, and the surging qi in Li Yundong's body calmed down. Li Yundong's pained expression turned calm and peaceful. The bulging veins all over his body calmed down, and the qi in his body began to flow on its own. Su Chan let out a sigh of relief. Her eyes were still fixed on Li Yundong, observing his condition. Li Yundong had just come back from the gates of hell. The violent qi in his body was like a tamed flood, flowing back into their respective meridians. After the qi had automatically circulated for 4 or 5 small circulations, Su Chan was surprised to find that the qi in Li Yundong's body had begun to automatically flow along the meridians and acupoints of the small circulations. There was no need for anyone to deliberately guide it. It was as if the violent flow of the qi had forcibly widened and deepened the meridians in Li Yundong's body. It was like a torrent that was originally rushing in the wilderness had forcibly rushed out a deep and wide riverbed, and then naturally followed the direction of the riverbed and became docile. Su Chan was very surprised. She muttered to herself, "This guy can't be so lucky, can he? Can qi deviation be a blessing in disguise?" When ordinary people cultivated qi, if they wanted to strengthen the qi in their body, they had to put in a lot of effort and hardships. If they wanted to deepen and widen the meridians in their body, it was something that could only be encountered by chance. Just relying on hard work was useless, it required opportunities. However, Li Yundong had done something that ordinary cultivators couldn't do even if they begged for it. He had actually done it by accident. Su Chan suddenly felt a little jealous. She poked Li Yundong's nose and said angrily, "You're lucky. How could you run into this kind of dog shit luck? Let's see what you'll do next time you get qi deviation." "I don't care anymore. If you're so good, you can continue to circulate the small circulations like this. There won't be any problems." After saying that, she stood up and was about to leave, but after taking 2 steps, she still felt worried. The qi in Li Yundong's body was currently repairing the damaged meridians. If she took another wrong step, Li Yundong would be doomed, and Su Chan wouldn't be able to save him. Su Chan thought for a moment, then walked back. She pouted and said, "Well, it's not that I don't trust you. I just don't trust you to waste my Renyuan Jindan. You're a reckless guy. You have to understand this." After that, Su Chan muttered, "What a reckless guy. How dare he practice qi in public? Isn't he courting death? He almost got me into trouble." Although that was what she said, Su Chan looked at Li Yundong with concern. She stared at him without blinking, afraid that he would make the slightest mistake. When the qi in Li Yundong's body had completed the 36th cycle, a faint colorful light suddenly surged from his body, as if he was wearing a colorful cloud. Su Chan was shocked. Jindan qi? Her eyes were full of envy and jealousy. At this time, the colorful light meant that the Renyuan Jindan in Li Yundong's body was completely absorbed, and the Renyuan Jindan would complete the final attack and transformation of Li Yundong's body. After that, Li Yundong's essence qi and blood would be several times stronger than before, and the strength of his body would also be several times stronger. After looking at it enviously for a while, Su Chan gradually calmed down and couldn't help but sigh, "Master is right. Some people's good fortune is really incomparable. Chapter 31. Li Yundong chuckled at the sight of Su Chan sleeping. He couldn't help but reach out to caress the girl's smooth, fair cheeks, but his hand stopped halfway, fearing that he would wake her from her sweet dreams. Li Yundong stared at Su Chan for a long time before his gaze fell on the blood-stained towel. Only then did he remember what had happened to him. Everything that had happened to him during his qi deviation was still vivid in his mind. Li Yundong reached out and touched his nose, eyes and mouth. He found that his hands were clean and there was no blood. He breathed a sigh of relief and sighed with lingering fear, "It's really horrible. I didn't expect to be slapped to death when I was lucky." Li Yundong thought back to how he'd almost killed someone when he'd gone berserk. He couldn't help but shiver. If it wasn't for Su Chan, I'd be dead already. But the thought of it made his heart skip a beat. Why did I have such a huge reaction when I was cultivating qi? Why did every other qigong cultivator have the same reaction? And why did I bleed from all my orifices in just one day? No matter how stupid Li Yundong was, he could vaguely sense that the situation was so strange that it was inexplicable. He stared at Su Chan and thought, is she the one who brought all these changes to me? Li Yundong was in a daze for a while. He wanted to ask Su Chan, so he pushed her shoulder, only to hear the little girl groan in a daze. Her eyelids opened a slit and she murmured, "Yundong, are you awake?" "Yeah, I'm glad you're okay. I'm so sleepy." Li Yundong smiled and put the question at the back of his mind. "If you're sleepy, go into the room and sleep." Su Chan wiggled her body, but she couldn't even open her eyes. "No, I'm too sleepy. Carry me in." Li Yundong scooped up the little fox, feeling as light as a feather. Su Chan wrapped her arms and legs around Li Yundong like an octopus. She rubbed her head against Li Yundong's chest and snored adorably. "This little girl." Li Yundong chuckled silently. He put Su Chan on the bed. The girl was clinging to his arm tightly. Her clothes were a little messy, and the corners of her clothes were peeking out. Li Yundong felt as if a faint fragrance was floating in the quiet, dark bedroom, teasing his heart. Li Yundong stared blankly at Su Chan, lost in thought for a moment. Li Yundong glanced at the nightlight alarm clock in his bedroom and realized that it was only 10 o'clock in the evening, which was the best time for nightlife. In the past, he would have been either playing online games or fighting on the battle net at this time. But now, all the lights in his house were out and there was no sound at all. Ever since Su Chan moved into his house, Li Yundong realized that his entire life had changed. Li Yundong, who was a huge fan of video games, suddenly found them boring. He didn't want to play them anymore. All he could think about was this mysterious little beauty with an unknown identity. While Li Yundong was deep in thought, he saw the little fox turn around and lie down on the bed. She curled up into a ball and hugged the blanket tightly to her chest. Her perky buttocks were perfectly round and alluring. He turned on the air conditioner for Su Chan, then quietly backed out of the room. He stared blankly into the living room for a while, then fell asleep in a daze. The next morning, Li Yundong woke up and touched his phone in a daze. He glanced at the time and suddenly jumped up. It was already 10 o'clock. Half of the morning classes were already over. Li Yundong rushed to the bathroom to wash up. As soon as he pushed the door open, he saw Su Chan standing in front of the dresser with a dazed look on her face. She had one hand on her messy hair and the other was slapping her mouth. She was yawning non-stop. Su Chan was wearing Li Yundong's pajamas, which were loose and loose. Li Yundong could even see the girl's fair chest through the gaps in her clothes when she yawned. It was a dazzling sight to behold. For a moment, Li Yundong was in a daze. He had forgotten the question he had wanted to ask Su Chan and just stared at her blankly. Su Chan turned her face to look at Li Yundong. Just as she was about to greet him, she suddenly found a problem. She jumped in front of Li Yundong, opened her eyes wide and carefully looked at his face. Li Yundong felt a little uncomfortable under Su Chan's stare. He couldn't help but touch his own face. "What's wrong with me?" Su Chan burst into laughter. She pulled the confused Li Yundong over to the mirror and pointed at his face. "Look." Li Yundong stared at himself in the mirror. "What's wrong?" he asked. Su Chan's eyes turned into crescent moons. "Haven't you noticed that your face has gotten thinner?" Li Yundong froze. He took a closer look at his face. Sure enough, his face had gotten thinner. He couldn't help but rub his fat belly. He realized that he'd lost a lot of meat as well. "I've gotten thinner?" Li Yundong asked in surprise. Su Chan grinned from ear to ear and nodded heavily. Yes. Li Yundong chuckled. He looked at himself in the mirror and said, "I look pretty handsome after I've slimmed down." Su Chan made a face at him. "Isn't it because of me?" she said. Li Yundong was stunned. What does it have to do with you? But then he remembered that ever since he'd met Su Chan, he'd been fighting and being chased by people almost every day. It would be strange if he didn't lose weight after all that exercise. Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry at the thought. I can't believe this little girl has the nerve to ask for a reward. But he was happy to see Su Chan happy. Isn't this the purest form of happiness between a boy and a girl? Rejoice in your happiness and grieve in your sadness. In her opinion, it was precisely because her Rinyuan Jindan had transformed Li Yundong's body, and then she had massaged his meridians with the three-pronged flower technique, that she had helped him unclog his meridians and forced him to passively practice the minor circulation of qi. Furthermore, the qi deviation had indirectly deepened Li Yundong's meridians, allowing the blood qi to flow through his meridians and take away the filth that had accumulated in his body in the past. That was why Li Yundong had become so thin. This was why, since ancient times, Taoist immortals in China had all been thin and sage-like, but no one had ever heard of a Taoist immortal with a fat head and big ears. In the eyes of doctors, people gained weight because their meridians were blocked. Once their meridians were normal, they would automatically lose weight. Cultivators' meridians were all well-developed and unobstructed, so they couldn't gain weight even if they wanted to. Li Yundong used to be a complete otaku and he didn't like exercise. Naturally, his blood qi would circulate slowly, and his meridians would not be smooth, so he would gain weight. But now, after the Rinyuan Jindan had transformed his body was changing every day. It might not be obvious in 1 or 2 days, but it was obvious in 3 or 4, 5 or 6 days. Li Yundong's originally chubby face now had the contours of his cheekbones, and his chin had become a little pointy. When a person lost weight, his spirit, qi and spirit came out. Li Yundong looked at himself in the mirror and sighed. I almost can't remember what I looked like when I was thin. Su Chan looked at Li Yundong with a wide smile on her face. She looked as if she was enjoying his happiness, but in reality she was secretly delighted. He's thinner, which means that he's already at the end of the middle stage of the second tier of qi refining. Li Yundong thought to himself. There were 3 stages to the second heaven of qi refinement. The first stage consisted of nourishing the essence, consolidating the spirit and repairing the meridians. With the help of the Rinyuan Jindan, Li Yundong passed the stage without a problem. Now, the middle stage consisted of meridian expansion, qi condensation, and freedom. Li Yundong had been possessed by the devil before and had accidentally completed the most difficult part of the Expansion Sutra. What he needed to practice next was to learn how to condense the majestic qi in his body into a ball, so that he could have the divine strength of 1,000 pounds with every move. Then he would learn how to use the qi freely in actual combat, so that he could summon it at will and leave it at will, unlike Duan Yu's 6 Meridians magic sword, which was sometimes ineffective. It was early morning, the time when all living things were awake and full of vigor. The morning sun shone through the window onto Li Yundong's face, making him look like he had been sprinkled with a layer of golden powder. His whole body was bursting with energy, and even his hair exuded a heroic aura. Su Chan stared at him in a daze. Her heart skipped a beat. In the 27th verse of the Vajra heart, Shakyamuni said that men have 7 treasures, and women have 5 cavities. It's easy for men to cultivate, but it's hard for women to cultivate. The sentence was not wrong at all. Li Yundong had the body of a man with 7 treasures. With the help of the Rinyuan Jindan, he would immediately surpass most mortals in the world. In just a few days he would break through the first heaven and enter the middle stage of the second heaven. If I get the Rinyuan Jindan, I'm afraid I'll have to go into seclusion for a month to digest the medicinal power of the Jindan. Su Chan couldn't help but feel a little jealous. But then she remembered that the faster Li Yundong progressed, the closer it would be for me to harvest yang energy to nourishing energy. At the thought of this, Su Chan couldn't help but hesitate and panic. Li Yundong stared at himself in the mirror for a long time, until he felt like he was being too narcissistic. Then he turned around and smiled at Su Chan. He struck a pose and said, "What do you think? Can I be a movie star now?" "Movie star?" Su Chan asked in confusion. Li Yundong waved his hand dismissively. "Forget it. It's nothing. It's the weekend. Let me take you out to play." When Su Chan heard this, her eyebrows lit up, and her eyes turned into crescent moons. Okay. Where will you take me?" Li Yundong's phone rang before he could think of a place to go. He ran to the living room to answer the call. "Li Yundong, am I your personal secretary now?" Sun Li's voice came from the other end of the line. "I can't afford to keep a big-name sweetheart like you." Li Yundong chuckled. "Get out of here," Sun Li said angrily. "Everyone's here for the rehearsal for the exchange today. You're the only one missing." Senior Feng Na from the student council has her eyes on me. You can do whatever you want. No way. Li Yundong said in an exaggerated voice. Isn't today Saturday? Sun Li laughed angrily. Li Yundong, it looks like you really should go see a doctor. Haven't you recovered from that rampage in the classroom? It's Monday. Li Yundong froze. He glanced at the time on his phone and smiled bitterly. Did I sleep for 2 days again? Time flies by too quickly. Hey, class rep, can you ask Feng Na if she's done with me? If she hasn't, I'm not going. Li Yundong said. Come and ask her yourself. I don't give a shit about your business. Sun Li snapped. Chapter 33. Even Zhuang Hui, who was dancing on stage, couldn't help but stare at Li Yundong. Who is this guy? She asked. Since ancient times, the more beautiful a woman was, the more yin qi she had, and the easier it was for her to be attracted by a man with exuberant yang qi. Vice versa, the more heroic and indomitable a man was, the more yang qi he had, and the easier it was for him to be attracted by a woman with exuberant yin qi. That was the saying, beauties love heroes and heroes love beauties. As soon as Su Chan showed up, Zhuang Hui, who was dancing on stage, started to make mistakes as well. The two of them were as stiff as zombies on stage. Li Yundong's appearance made Zhuang Hui start making mistakes as well. Su Chan took a sip of the milk tea Li Yundong handed her. What are they doing? She asked. They're dancing, Li Yundong said with a smile. Can't you tell? The little fox's eyes widened in shock as she exclaimed, What? Aren't they supposed to be dancing to the gods? Zhuang Hui heard it loud and clear. Her foot slipped and she fell to the floor with a loud clang. She subconsciously braced herself with her hand so that her fake breasts wouldn't be damaged, but then she heard a crack on her wrist. The students and teachers watching the performance below the stage were in an uproar. Feng Na was so happy that she was rocking back and forth. Good fall. Good fall. Why didn't you damage her fake breasts? Hey, that's my line. Ching Ching said, annoyed. Feng Na ignored Ching Ching. She ran up to the stage and pretended to be concerned. Hey, what's wrong? Where did you hurt yourself? If you break your hand, how are you going to dance? Wouldn't that be a waste of all the effort you've put into rehearsing? Zhuang Hui's face turned purple with anger and hatred. Tears welled up in her eyes. One of the teachers couldn't take it anymore. He stood up and pointed at Su Chan's back. Where did you come from? He yelled. Why are you causing trouble? Get out. You're not welcome here. I didn't want to, Su Chan said pitifully, turning around to face Lin Sanjiu. Her pitiful expression immediately softened the sanctimonious teacher's spine. He coughed dryly and changed his expression as fast as flipping a page of a book. Is that so? That should be a misunderstanding. Just pay attention to your volume. Don't be too loud. When the surrounding teachers and students heard this, they couldn't help but feel a deep sense of disdain. Only the opposite sex, no humanity. Li Yundong didn't know about the feud between Zhuang Hui and Feng Na, so when he saw how nervous Feng Na was, he turned to Su Chan. Look at you, he said. You always cause trouble the moment you open your mouth. Su Chan pouted and said, then I'll go and cure her. With that, she hopped onto the stage, walked forward and reached out to grab Zhuang Hui's arm. Zhuang Hui had made a fool out of herself and she hated Su Chan to the core. She ducked away from Su Chan and yelled angrily, it's none of your business. Su Chan turned around and looked at Li Yundong helplessly. Li Yundong had no choice but to follow suit and leap onto the stage. His posture was so cool and powerful that it made the eyes of the people around him light up. Li Yundong smiled at Zhuang Hui in a friendly manner. Hey, don't be mad at her. Show her what you got. She's really good. Zhuang Hui nodded. Don't be mad. When Zhuang Hui saw Li Yundong smile at her, she was so nervous that her heart felt like it was about to stop beating. She even forgot about the pain in her wrist and nodded blankly. Su Chan reached out to grab Zhuang Hui's palm and forearm. It's fine. It's just a dislocated wrist, she said. As she spoke, she exerted force with both her hands and with a click, she received it. Zhuang Hui cried out in pain as if she had just woken up from a dream. Su Chan put Zhuang Hui's hand down. All right. It's fine. Zhuang Hui tried to move her wrist. My hand is fine, she yelled in surprise and joy. The girls on the stage surrounded Zhuang Hui. They looked at Zhuang Hui's hand curiously, then at Su Chan with awe. But most of them were looking at Li Yundong. Zhuang Hui's hand was healed, but she didn't want to thank Su Chan. In her opinion, her hand was injured because of what Su Chan had said. She wanted to use this opportunity to get closer to the handsome guy in front of her. Zhuang Hui was pretty with big eyes and willowy eyebrows. When she smiled sweetly, she looked a little charming. Hey handsome, what's your name? How come I've never seen you before? Feng Na thought to herself. This slut just happens to be flirting with men. How shameless. But why does this handsome guy look so familiar? Wait a minute, isn't the beauty beside him? No way. He's Li Yundong? Li Yundong smiled at Zhuang Hui. I'm Li Yundong. Nice to meet you. Zhuang Hui's eyes suddenly widened, and the expression on her face was as if she had seen a ghost. The corners of her eyes twitched and she said awkwardly, Your name is Li Yundong? Li Yundong smiled. That's right. Zhuang Hui yelled, That's impossible. Aren't you supposed to be fat? Li Yundong frowned. His eyes grew cold. Haven't you heard of the saying that a man who has been away for 3 days should be looked at differently? Zhuang Hui secretly regretted saying such a stupid thing, causing the handsome guy in front of her to treat her coldly. Li Yundong turned his face and said to Feng Na, Sister, have you helped me with my business? Before Feng Na could say anything, they heard an angry voice from below the stage. It was Director Qian. Li Yundong? What are you doing up there? Come down now. Don't delay the rehearsal. Director Qian's face darkened. He had already made up his mind to fire Li Yundong. Otherwise, Li Yundong would be a ticking time bomb. Who knew when Li Yundong would expose the fact that he had once seduced Su Chan? Even if this incident wouldn't affect his position, he was still an educator, who didn't care about their reputation, who wasn't afraid of being criticized behind their backs. After saying that, Director Qian lifted his head angrily, as if this action would bring him prestige. Zhou Qin walked up to him with a smile. Director Qian, I have something to discuss with you. Director Qian turned his head, and a bright smile bloomed on his face. Oh, it's Zhou Qin. What is it? Just say the word. I heard that you're going to fire Li Yundong? Zhou Qin asked. The smile on Director Qian's face froze. How did you know? Zhou Qin smiled but did not answer. She said, Can you do me a favor and not fire him? Director Qian cursed inwardly. What's so good about Li Yundong? Why are there so many beautiful women on his side? Zhou Qin was famous for her cold face and cold heart. She had actually helped Li Yundong again and again. Did she really like Li Yundong? Director Qian's face darkened. He didn't say anything. Zhou Qin frowned. She had thought that Director Qian would agree immediately. She hadn't expected the old man to put on airs. Zhou Qin suppressed her impatience and asked, Director Qian, if I may ask, has there been any conflict between you and him? When Director Qian heard this, he immediately said righteously, Of course not. Do you think I'm the kind of person who would use public office to avenge a personal grudge? No, I just think that this student is too much. Look at how much trouble he's caused in just a few days. Plus, he's been bringing a girl who isn't even from our school around the city all day long. That's a terrible influence. Zhou Qin's lips curled into a cold smile. Even if you want to fire him, you have to wait until the conference is over, don't you? Right now, he's taking Zhao Yujian's spot. Please don't hold it against him. Director Qian looked Zhou Qin up and down, then suddenly smiled. Fine. For your sake, I'll let him go until the conference is over. But let me make it clear. I'll kick a black sheep like him out the moment I hear about it. With that, he turned around and left. Zhou Qin was furious, but she was so well-mannered that it couldn't be seen on her face. Ding Nan, who was next to her, spat and sneered, What the hell? The way he looked at you just now, it was as if he wanted to eat you. Zhou Qin pursed her lips and didn't say anything else. She just looked at Feng Na from afar and nodded. Feng Na was overjoyed. She also nodded at Zhou Qin to express her gratitude. Zhou Qin had finished what Feng Na had entrusted to her. She was so upset that she turned around and was about to leave. Ding Nan, who was beside her, asked curiously, Aren't you going to watch the next show? Zhou Qin frowned. No. Ding Nan winked at Zhou Qin. Feng Na put in so much effort to get him to take over. Aren't you curious about what Li Yundong is going to do? Zhou Qin stopped in her tracks and turned around. She crossed her arms over her chest and frowned. Just for a minute? Ding Nan smiled, but she thought disdainfully, Hypocrite. On the stage, Feng Na patted Li Yundong on the shoulder and said, You're in luck. It's time for you to fulfill your part of the bargain. Be a good girl and wait for me, Li Yundong said to Su Chan. Su Chan nodded obediently and jumped off the stage. After taking a sip of her milk tea, she waved at Li Yundong and said, Good luck. Li Yundong smiled at her. His smile was so bright that it made the hearts of the girls around him skip a beat. Li Yundong turned to Feng Na and asked, What should I do? It's simple, Feng Na said. First, do a few fighting stances with your teammates and then complete a special show. Chapter 34. Li Yundong could see the obvious rejection and hostility on this guy's face. It was obvious that this guy didn't want to be his partner. However, Li Yundong's performance at the Taekwondo club had made him fearful. Plus, this was for the sake of the Taekwondo club's reputation. Although Li Yundong had never practiced Taekwondo seriously, he had used the Rinyuan Jindan to attack his body. Just like Zhang Wuji, who had practiced the 9-yang divine kung fu in the heaven and earth great shift, there were no obstacles or barriers for him to practice martial arts in this world. He could use them at his fingertips. Although there might be some differences in the internal force exertion techniques, the power and postures of his attacks were unmistakable to outsiders. Li Yundong and the senior bowed to each other, then got into position and started practicing with each other. This kind of practice was completely routine. The audience was very excited, but in reality, the two of them hadn't even touched each other's skin. However, Li Yundong's every move was filled with power, especially when he threw a punch. The wind whistled through the air, and the senior sparring with Li Yundong was terrified. He was afraid that he would accidentally take a punch from Li Yundong. If that happened, he would have to accompany Zhao Yujian to the hospital. Damn it, this kid is a monster. The senior cursed inwardly. 2 days ago, he looked like a novice who had never practiced Taekwondo before. Now, his moves are even more accurate than the coach's. As the saying goes, when an expert makes a move, you can tell the difference. As soon as Li Yundong made a move, the strength and majesty of his punches and kicks could not be faked. The students and teachers watching the rehearsal in the auditorium nodded silently. The girls' eyes lit up. Some of them looked at Su Chan with jealousy. Why didn't I take a liking to Li Yundong in the first place? In the end, this little vixen benefited from it. Zhuang Hui watched the valiant and heroic Li Yundong practice with the senior from backstage. Especially Li Yundong's loud shouts during the practice. His voice was majestic and masculine like rolling thunder. Every time he shouted, her heart would skip a beat. Zhuang Hui couldn't help but turn her head to look at her partner, who she used to think was ridiculously handsome. Her heart was filled with regret. Why does he look so unbearably effeminate now? It was really a case of comparing goods to goods. Why did I have to be so ruthless before? As long as Feng Na whispered one more word into Li Yundong's ear, she would have no chance at all. However, Zhuang Hui was also a proud girl. She thought to herself, if there's no chance, then there's no chance. What's the big deal? There are so many handsome men in the world. But although Zhuang Hui thought so, her heart ached and tears welled up in her eyes. After Li Yundong and the senior finished practicing, there was a burst of applause on and off the stage. After Li Yundong moved his hands and feet, all the meridians in his body were stretched out, and he looked more energetic and calm. On the other hand, the senior who was training with him was panting because his hands and feet had been tied up all the time. You really can't judge a book by its cover? Ding Nan, who was watching from below the stage, shook her head. I didn't expect this guy to be a hidden expert. After watching the performance, Zhou Qin suppressed the curiosity and throbbing in her heart and said lightly, "Let's go." Ding Nan said, "Hey, there are more down there." After she finished speaking, she saw the hostess come up with a microphone, applauding and saying to Li Yundong with a smile, not bad at all. You must be a martial artist, right?" Li Yundong shook his head. No. The hostess looked at him in surprise, thinking that he was being modest. She smiled and glanced at the program list. Suddenly, a strange expression appeared on her face. "Next, Li Yundong will be presenting us with a very unique and traditional program," she said. Li Yundong was stunned. He turned to Feng Na and said, "There's more?" Feng Na felt a little guilty, but when she thought of how she had embarrassed herself in front of Li Yundong, she gritted her teeth and said, "Of course. Who would want to watch a program like this?" Li Yundong thought for a moment, then said to himself, "That's true. I used to watch TV shows where people would perform something like splitting bricks or kicking planks." At this time, Li Yundong only felt that his body was full of endless energy. He also wanted to know whether he could split bricks and how many bricks he could split, so he said very freely, "Okay, let's do it. I'm not afraid of you." The expression on the hostess's face grew even more interesting. She glanced at Li Yundong with a mixture of admiration and amusement. "All right then. Now let us welcome Li Yundong to our traditional show, breaking rocks with your chest." As soon as she said that, Su Chan, who was sipping on her milk tea, choked and sprayed it out of her nostrils. Li Yundong, who was stretching his legs, fell to the ground when he heard Su Chan's words. "What?" he yelled. "Say that again?" Li Yundong yelled. The students and teachers on and off the stage were all stunned. After a while they all burst into laughter. Zhuang Hui, who was secretly feeling sad, couldn't help but burst into laughter. Zhou Qin, who was about to turn around and leave, was stunned. The corner of her mouth twitched. She covered her mouth as if she was trying to hold back her laughter. Her back was shaking. Li Yundong looked up at the hostess. "Are you sure?" The hostess blinked and said innocently, "No, I'm not. See for yourself if you don't believe me." Li Yundong took the program list and glanced at it. Sure enough, the last program on the list was his signature performance. Breaking rocks on your chest. There's got to be a mistake. Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He turned to look at Feng Na, only to see her and Ching Ching laughing hysterically. Li Yundong knew what was going on. Damn it, this girl is messing with me, he thought. Very good, very good. Li Yundong walked over to Feng Na with the program list in hand. What the hell are you doing? He asked angrily. Feng Na held back her laughter and puffed out her chest. What the hell? Didn't you say it yourself? What did I say? Li Yundong asked in surprise. I asked you what you were going to perform and you said breaking rocks on your chest. Feng Na said. After that, she turned to Ching Ching and said, Hey, don't you think so? Ching Ching rubbed her stomach and tried to hold back her laughter. She didn't dare to look at Li Yundong's face, for fear that her stomach would burst if she saw Li Yundong's wonderful expression. Yes, yes, she said. I can testify. Li Yundong was so angry that he felt like a Buddha ascending to heaven and two Buddhas coming out of his body. Are you treating me like a fool? He thought. Hey, do you think I'm an idiot? Li Yundong said angrily. What day and age are we in? Do people still perform breaking rocks on their chest? As soon as he said this, the group of people on and off the stage burst into laughter again. Feng Na said in a serious tone, Don't forget our agreement. I'll help you take care of your things, and you have to help me take care of mine. But you can't do this to me. Li Yundong said angrily. Who's doing this to you? Feng Na said with a look of awe-inspiring righteousness. Don't you know that breaking rocks on one's chest is a traditional performance of our country and our people? I think this kind of antique and ethnic performance is the best choice for the exchange meeting with the University of Pennsylvania in the United States. The corners of Li Yundong's eyes twitched, and his heart was filled with hatred. He turned to look at Su Chan, wanting to ask for help, but he saw that the girl was already squatting on the ground with laughter, rubbing her cheeks with both hands, which were a little sore from laughing. This heartless girl. Li Yundong cursed in his heart. Fine. Come on. Li Yundong said, stealing his heart. He looked a little fearless, but his next words soon revealed his fear. But I didn't agree to play the role of the person with the big rock on his chest. Feng Na saw that Li Yundong was going to go back on his word, so she simply said, Fine. I'll play the part of the sledgehammer anyway. Do you want to play the stone slab or the sledgehammer? It's your choice. The students in the audience, who were eager to see the world in chaos, laughed so hard that they almost died. Li Yundong felt so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. He began to regret his rude attitude toward this senior back in the classroom. Damn it. Who said that only women and despicable people are hard to deal with? Was it Mr. Confucius? Mr. Confucius, I worship you. What you said was too goddamn right. Women should never be offended, especially beautiful women. Li Yundong had learned a profound lesson from this incident. He decided to surrender. Fine. You win. I'll play the part of the person with the stone slab on his chest. That's right. Feng Na said proudly. Li Yundong steeled his heart and shouted, Bring the hammer over here. I don't believe you've prepared a hammer for me. Feng Na laughed and said to Ching Ching, Go get the hammer. Ching Ching rubbed her stomach with one hand and her cheeks with the other. She jogged to the backstage, then dragged a big iron hammer with both hands, making a clanging sound as she walked over. The audience burst into laughter when they saw Ching Ching dragging the hammer out. Zhou Qin, who had been holding back her laughter all this time, couldn't take it anymore. Her tightly pursed lips made a snorting sound from time to time. Ding Nan, who was sitting beside her, was laughing so hard that she almost looked human. Sometimes she would punch the seat and sometimes she would put her finger to her mouth and whistle. Li Yundong stared at the hammer Ching Ching had dragged out. Damn it, he said in surprise. You're so cruel. Which construction site did you steal this hammer from? It's so big. Feng Na squatted down on the stage. Nonsense. I went to a hardware store to buy it. Li Yundong gave her a thumbs up. Good. Very good. Very good. What about the stone? I don't believe you can buy something like that. Feng Na tried to hold back her laughter and snapped her fingers at Ching Ching. Buy it? It's everywhere. Just pick it up. Li Yundong was skeptical when he heard that. He thought to himself, How can there be such a big slate that I can pick up anywhere? But this girl obviously came prepared. What if she really pulled out a big stone slab? Would I be able to carry it? Thinking of this, Li Yundong couldn't help but smile apologetically at Feng Na. Hey senior sister, we'll see each other all the time. There's no need to kill me, is there? This stone slab is too big and too heavy. I can't carry it. Feng Na put on a compassionate expression. Don't worry. I specially prepared a smaller one for you. After that, Ching Ching ran out of the backstage area. Everyone's eyes fell on her hands, but they saw that she was empty-handed. Just as everyone was wondering what was going on, they saw Ching Ching run up to Li Yundong and shove something into his hands. Here, she said, trying hard not to laugh. Here's the stone. Li Yundong took the stone and looked at it. Immediately he coughed up 3 liters of blood. Holding the stone in his hand, he yelled, I'm the sun. It's fine if you want me to break a stone with my chest, but you should at least get me a proper stone slab. Fine. It's fine if you can't get me a proper stone slab, but you should at least get me a passable sewer stone slab. Fine. If you can't even get me a stone, then I'll put up with it. But you can get me a brick. You can't even get bricks now, but you got a Yuhua stone. What's the meaning of this? Chapter 35. Some of the teachers who had disliked Li Yundong's behavior before had to wipe away their tears and say with a smile, Okay, what are you supposed to do? Perform normally. Don't mess around. The exchange meeting won't allow you to mess around like this. Feng Na knew when to stop. She smiled at the teacher and said, I was just joking with my junior. Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You call that a joke? Feng Na made a face at him. Who told you to offend me before? Li Yundong had no choice but to put his palms together. Benefactor, I was blind. Please forgive me. Feng Na returned the gesture with a serious face. Amit Ba. Buddha said, the sea of bitterness has no bounds. Repent and you will be saved. Tanyu, the prodigal son, has turned back. So touching. All the gods and Buddhas will shed tears for him. After exchanging a few words, the two of them looked at each other and burst into laughter. Although this farce had embarrassed Li Yundong a lot on the stage, the girls on and off the stage looked at Li Yundong with even brighter eyes. Who wouldn't like a boy who was sunny, handsome, and funny? Some girls whispered to themselves, Sigh, if only I had such a funny boyfriend. Didn't you say you didn't like otakus before? It's not impossible to consider such an interesting otaku. TSK, you slutty hussy who judges people by their appearance. You think he's handsome, right? Hey, I want to be handsome and I want to be funny. Bah, look at the beauty beside him. What level is she? Aren't you afraid of feeling inferior? Li Yundong didn't know that these girls were talking about him in private. He looked at Feng Na and said, Hey, seriously, what else do you need me to perform? If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Seeing that he was about to turn around and leave, Feng Na quickly grabbed him and said, Hey, you still have to perform stone bricks and flying wooden boards. Li Yundong sighed. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, it can't be avoided. Alright, what else do you have? Hurry up and show me. I'll take it. Feng Na smiled. No, that's all. Do you think you still want to challenge the Shaolin 18 bronze men? Li Yundong laughed. The 18 bronze men? You really know how to joke. Are you going to the Shaolin temple to invite someone? Think about it. Can you invite them? Feng Na smiled and said, Oh? Are you serious? Do you really want to create the 18 bronze men? Noticing Feng Na's unfriendly gaze, Li Yundong thought to himself, if this crazy B*TCH really makes 18 bronze statues like the one in the movie God of Cookery and smacks them with a wooden stool and a mop, I won't be able to stand it. Li Yundong hurriedly said, Okay, you're amazing, okay? I'm afraid of you. Feng Na said proudly, Good that you know. Then Ching Ching brought some tiles from backstage and stacked them on the stage one by one. Everyone could hear the sound of the tiles colliding with each other. They whispered to each other, These tiles are real. Will they work? Li Yundong had never split a tile before, so he had some doubts in his heart. He subconsciously walked to the edge of the platform, squatted down, and asked Su Chan, who was under the stage, Hey, can you do it? Su Chan waved her hand casually. No problem. It's just a small matter. Li Yundong was actually just asking casually, but when he heard Su Chan say so, his heart suddenly swelled up, as if he had become a little more powerful. He stood up and took a deep breath. His body seemed to have swelled up a little. He walked to the pile of tiles and gestured with his fist. Feng Na, who was standing beside him, knew that this was not a joke. She looked a little nervous and couldn't help but ask, Hey, can you do it? If not, I'll get someone else. It's okay. Just don't let anything happen to you. Li Yundong turned his head and smiled at her. It's okay. Don't worry. Li Yundong thought to himself. When he was in Qi deviation he could even smash the incomparably hard marble platform. There was no reason why he couldn't smash these tiles, right? Feng Na was still a little worried. Remember, when you punch you must be straight and you must be decisive. Li Yundong didn't say anything else. He focused his mind and was just about to smash his fist down when he heard a voice next to him. What's the point of smashing tiles? It's not like it's going to be fun. Why don't we practice instead? Li Yundong turned his head and saw Zhou Yu, the one who had caused trouble for him at the school gate, standing next to a middle-aged man in a navy blue short-sleeved tang suit and a pair of nano-layer Saul's cloth shoes. Zhou Yu, what the hell are you doing? Feng Na asked with a frown. Zhou Yu glanced at her and waved his hand. Nana, it's none of your business. Get out of the way. Li Yundong saw that the two of them were staring at him. It was obvious that they had come for him. He frowned secretly, stood up, and said with a cold expression, What do you want? Zhou Yu pointed at the young man next to him. This is my Shixiang, the fifth-generation successor of Lin's iron wire fist, Li Yunfei. Li Yunfei was not tall, standing at about 1.7 meters. His skin was dark, and his features were typical of Cantonese people. His arms were thick and bulky, especially the ones that peeked out of his sleeves. The muscles on his arms were like steel bars, which made him look very scary. The young man's eyes were fixed on Li Yundong the moment he laid eyes on him, like a beast eyeing its prey. Li Yundong felt goosebumps rise on his skin under Li Yundong's intense stare. Subconsciously, all the hairs on his body stood on end, and the Jindan internal qi in his body began to circulate rapidly to protect its master. As soon as it circulated, Li Yundong's entire aura changed. Previously, the teachers and students on and off the stage had thought that although Li Yundong had a powerful aura, it was only masculine and not overbearing. But now Li Yundong's brows were furrowed. His eyes met Li Yunfei's, and the air around him seemed to be on fire. This was the purest Yuanyang qi in the world. Su Chan couldn't help but praise Li Yundong inwardly. Li Yundong may have great luck in cultivation, but he's tough on the inside and gentle on the outside. He's as gentle as flowing water when dealing with people, but he has a strong will in his heart. Not only that, he doesn't cower in the face of a strong opponent, he even dares to face them head-on. This kind of temperament and pure Yuanyang qi will make cultivation twice the result with half the effort. Feng Na's sharp senses picked up the smell of gunpowder in the air. She sneered. Well done, Zhou Yu. I never knew you were so capable before. Now that you know you can't beat Li Yundong, you're asking your Shixiang to step in. You think I can't beat him? Zhou Yu sneered. Earlier, Zhou Yu had witnessed Li Yundong take on many people at the school gate. He had been intimidated by Li Yundong's aura and didn't dare make a move. But the more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became. He told his Shixiang about it, and his Shixiang Huofei immediately pointed out. You have to defeat this man. If he destroys your state of mind, you won't be able to make any progress in your kung fu. Zhou Yu's heart skipped a beat. He had made up his mind to defeat Li Yundong in front of everyone and humiliate him. He and his senior brother Bai Huofei had discussed and sparred with each other about Li Yundong's extraordinary strength in private. They had come up with a way to deal with Li Yundong, which was why they had chosen today's rehearsal day to challenge him. Zhou Yu pointed at Huofei. I'm here to ask my Shixiang to be a witness. The vice principal, who had been acting as a rehearsal judge in the audience, was furious. What the hell are you guys doing? Are you treating this school like a dojo? If you want to fight, do it outside. This is a school. Zhou Yu turned around and said to the vice president, President Ku, since the purpose of the exchange day with the University of Pennsylvania is to promote our Chinese culture and the culture of our Central South University, why did they only allow the Taekwondo club to attend the exchange and not us? Principal Ku stomped his feet in anger. Ridiculous. Are you guys treating this exchange day as a joke? The Taekwondo club is an official club of the school. Do you even have an official club? Director Qian, who had been watching from the sidelines, suddenly thought of something. He stepped forward and said, Principal Ku, we do have a martial arts club in our school. Principal Ku's face stiffened as if he had been slapped in the face. He turned around and glared at Director Qian. Why didn't I know about it? Although Director Qian was only the director of the Academic Affairs Office, he was not afraid of the second-in-command of the school. He smiled and said, This is a martial arts club established by students. It's a non-governmental club. It was registered with the school a year ago, but due to poor management, it was later cancelled. Principal Ku turned back to Zhou Yu. That won't do. A friendly exchange between two universities should be conducted in a friendly manner. What's the point of fighting? Who's going to take responsibility if anything goes wrong? Principal Ku, this is a friendly exchange, Zhou Yu said hurriedly. Don't worry, there won't be any problems. If anything goes wrong, I'm willing to drop out of school. Zhou Yu had originally made up his mind to prove in front of everyone that he was better than Li Yundong, who had been in the limelight recently. Therefore he did not want to injure or cripple Li Yundong. He just wanted to make him lose face. Principal Ku angrily refused, but Director Qian's eyes lit up when he heard Principal Ku's words. Principal Ku, what Zhou Yu said makes sense, Director Qian egged Principal Ku on. Think about it, Director Qian said. A sparring match between Taekwondo and Chinese Wushu would attract a lot of attention. Besides, they are both adults and martial arts practitioners. I'm sure they would pay attention to their punches and kicks. Principal Ku stared at Director Qian. You make it sound good, but if anything goes wrong, who's going to take responsibility? You or me? Director Qian smiled and said slyly, what are you worried about? Deputy Mayor Zhou is coming that day, right? He's in charge of education. With him around, you don't have to take responsibility. Even if the sky falls, there's someone taller to hold it up. Besides, I don't think anything will go wrong. But if you can get a good review from the higher-ups, you'll be in a good position, won't you? Principal Ku's heart skipped a beat, and he looked at Director Qian with a meaningful look in his eyes. He turned to look at Zhou Yu. Can you guarantee it? Zhou Yu was overjoyed when he saw that Principal Ku had agreed to it. If the principal had not agreed to it today, he would have fought with Li Yundong on the spot. But if the principal agreed, then it would be even better. He would humiliate Li Yundong in front of the whole school. Of course I can guarantee it, Principal Ku, Zhou Yu said with a smug smile. He turned to Li Yundong. I believe you. Junior and I will make friends through martial arts. Am I right, Li Yundong? Li Yundong's eyes were fixed on Huang Yifei. He didn't even look at Zhou Yu, who was jumping up and down. Let your senior come, Li Yundong said coolly. You're no match for him. Since we're going to make friends through martial arts in front of our foreign friends, we should at least be on par with each other. If we settle this in 2 or 3 moves, we'll be a laughing stock to our foreign friends. This sentence was no less than a heavy slap to Zhou Yu's face. Feng Na, who had been sulking all this while, burst into laughter. Chapter 36. Zhou Yu wanted to disgust him, so Li Yundong was even more disgusted than Zhou Yu. Li Yundong's words made Zhou Yu feel like he had just swallowed a fly, but he still had to put on a smile. Oh really, he said. Li Yundong sure is confident. Zhou Yu wanted to say something, but Bai Luofei cut him off. Alright, I'll take the challenge. Senior brother you? Zhou Yu gasped. Bai Luofei's eyes were glued to Li Yundong, afraid that if he let his guard down, Li Yundong would pounce on him and kill him. Bai Luofei had fought in the underworld, and his blood reeked of bloodthirst. He had never been loyal, and he himself often took advantage of others to kill them. Therefore, it was only natural for him to judge others by his own standards, fearing that his opponent would make a move on him. Bai Luofei stared at Li Yundong and said to Zhou Yu, your kung fu isn't up to par yet. You won't be able to hold back and release your power as you wish. Zhou Yu's face darkened, but he thought about it for a moment and nodded. He turned to Headmaster Ku and said, Headmaster Ku, you see, my senior brother has volunteered to take the challenge. His kung fu is much stronger than mine, so he'll be able to hold back and release his power. Don't worry about it. Headmaster Ku was an old academic, so he had no idea that the higher the level of kung fu, the more likely it was for a fight to end up with a fatal injury. If it was just a fight between 2 people with high kung fu, then the one with high kung fu would be able to hold back and release his power as he pleased. But if it was a fight between 2 people with high kung fu, and either one of them was afraid that they would hold back and the other would land a hit on them, then all their kung fu would be wasted. Therefore, when 2 people with high kung fu were sparring, they wouldn't hold back at all. The result was a fight between 2 tigers, and one of them was bound to get hurt. In the historical records of Chinese martial arts since ancient times, there had been countless tragedies when brothers and sisters from various sects sparred with each other. Li Yundong wasn't a kung fu practitioner, so it was only natural that he would be clueless about it. Su Chan, on the other hand, knew that Li Yundong wouldn't be able to defeat these kung fu practitioners, even if he couldn't defeat them with his Jin Dan. That was why she wasn't worried at all. Su Chan, on the other hand, knew that even if Li Yundong couldn't defeat these kung fu practitioners, he would still be invincible thanks to his Jin Dan. Although the other girls like Feng Na and Zhou Qin had practiced Taekwondo before, They only practiced fancy but impractical moves. How could they know the brutality of a real fight? Therefore, in the huge auditorium, no one except Su Chan had noticed anything amiss. Headmaster Ke might not understand the intricacies, but he was still a cunning old fox. Even though he didn't. So he was a cunning old fox. He snorted through his nose and walked away. Nonsense. Even though it was a short sentence, there was a lot of hidden meaning behind it. His attitude might seem like a tacit agreement, but if something really did happen, his words could be used as a footnote. I said it's nonsense. He clearly doesn't agree to it. Director Chen stared at Headmaster Ke's back and cursed him inwardly. Then he turned around with a smile. All right, Headmaster Ke has agreed to it. Go back and prepare. The exchange is in a few days. Don't let the foreigners laugh at us. Hui Yunfei had been wary of Li Yundong, but Li Yundong had a heart of gold, and his aura was far stronger than Hui Yunfei's. So Hui Yunfei wasn't too wary of him. Instead, he turned to look at Director Chen. No matter how he looked at it, the smile on the perverted man's face seemed to be hiding a malicious intent. Most of the students in Deshui were innocent and naive, so they didn't know about the intrigue and ulterior motives involved. But they didn't mind the drama. Their faces were flushed with excitement, and they whispered to each other, "Hey, this is going to be fun. Who do you think will win?" Of course, Li Yundong. Zhou Qin and Ding Nan, on the other hand, noticed that something was amiss. One of them had grown up in a family of officials, so it was only natural for her to have a good understanding of the people in the ghost realm. The other one, on the other hand, was born smart and good at reading people's expressions. Why do I get the feeling that Director Chen is up to no good? Ding Nan said to Zhou Qin. Zhou Qin's brows were slightly furrowed, but she didn't say anything. What was supposed to be a hilarious farce had turned into a bloody drama of intrigue and intrigue. Let's go, Zhou Qin said coolly as she turned around. Aren't you worried? Ding Nan asked in surprise. But Zhou Qin's response was to turn and leave. Ding Nan curled her lips and sneered inwardly. Aren't you afraid that you'll get a rash if you cover yourself up so tightly all day long? Now that the battle had been decided, Hui Yunfei and Zhou Yu didn't stay any longer. As soon as the two of them left, Feng Na and the other girls who had a good impression of Li Yundong gathered around them. Li Yundong, you can do it. We're all rooting for you. Feng Na looked at Li Yundong apologetically. I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. Li Yundong laughed. Don't mention it. Fame is the bane of men and fat is the bane of pigs. A man like me is bound to stir up trouble wherever he goes. These words were very arrogant, and the surrounding girls all laughed out loud. Zhuang Hui stared at Li Yundong from a short distance away. The more she looked at him, the more frustrated she became. Finally, she stomped her feet and walked out of the auditorium. On the way back, Li Yundong looked at Su Chan. Why didn't you stop me earlier? He asked. Why would I stop you? Su Chan asked in confusion. Li Yundong sighed. To fight Zhou Yu Shixiang, of course. Do you really think that a person like me, who has never learned martial arts, could beat that guy? Of course. Su Chan said nonchalantly. Li Yundong really wanted to ask. Ever since you came, I've been in trouble every day. And why did I change so much all of a sudden? But Li Yundong swallowed the question. He thought about it for a moment, then decided that it would be better to wait until the exchange was over. If it was a blessing, it wouldn't be a curse. If it was a curse, he couldn't avoid it. Forget it. I'll think about it later, Li Yundong said. Even though the rehearsal was over, Li Yundong still had to attend his classes. Many students had heard that Li Yundong was going to fight someone at the exchange, so they crowded around Li Yundong and bombarded him with questions. Li Yundong was annoyed to no end. When school was over, Li Yundong grabbed Su Chan's hand and ran out of the school. What do you want to eat today? Li Yundong asked. Every time he got home, he felt truly comfortable and peaceful. This was a world that belonged to him and Su Chan alone. There was no one to disturb them, and no one to look at Su Chan with greedy, lustful eyes. Su Chan giggled and hooked her arm around Li Yundong's. I love anything you make. Li Yundong pinched Su Chan's nose dotingly. Okay, I'll make a bunch of junk food. You'll be fat to death. What's junk food? Su Chan asked, smiling. Li Yundong thought for a moment, then said, like the fried food we had at McDonald's last time. That's junk food. Su Chan's lips curled up into a smile. Wow, I thought you were a good guy. Who knew you'd bring me to eat junk food? Li Yundong burst into laughter. Who was the one who had such a good time eating junk food? How dare you bring it up? No, Su Chan said coquettishly. I'm mad at you for giving me junk food. Li Yundong thought for a moment, then rolled up his sleeves. Okay, I'm going to make you a real feast today. You wait at home. I'm going to go buy some groceries. Su Chan's saliva nearly dripped onto the floor when she heard that Li Yundong was going to make her a feast. Normal food is already so good, so what if it's a feast? Su Chan giggled. She hooked her arm around Li Yundong's and pouted. Don't leave me behind. I'm coming with you. Li Yundong stared at Su Chan's arm. His heart was pounding. Su Chan and I are really getting closer and closer. Are we living together now? What kind of relationship do we have with each other? The two of them left the house and went to the supermarket to buy groceries. After that, they returned home with their bags of groceries. Li Yundong put on his apron and busied himself in the kitchen while Su Chan stared at him from the sidelines. Su Chan wanted to help, but there was nothing she could do. When Li Yundong asked her to get soy sauce, she got vinegar. When he asked her to get sugar, she got a bag of salt. Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You're such a lazy bum. You can't even tell the 5 grains apart. Su Chan pouted so hard that a soy sauce bottle could be hung on it. How would I know that? All right, Li Yundong said helplessly. You can leave now. Su Chan felt so useless that she couldn't even be of any help. She tugged at the corner of her shirt and walked out step by step. When she reached the kitchen door, she pouted and said, Then I'm leaving. Li Yundong was busy chopping vegetables. He waved his hand without looking back. All right. You can leave now. Li Yundong's attitude made Su Chan feel a little upset. She sat in the living room and had nothing to do. She couldn't help but think about the things that had happened after she met Li Yundong. She remembered living in Li Yundong's house. She ate his food, wore his clothes, and used his things. Li Yundong had taken good care of her. He had even cooked for her by the stove to make her happy. And yet, she had lied to him and tried to squeeze him dry after he reached the foundation establishment stage. Isn't that a little too much? The more Su Chan thought about it, the more guilty she felt. She felt like she should make it up to Li Yundong. But there was no way she could repay him with her body, and there was no way she could give him a transcendent artifact. If she did, her identity would be exposed. Suddenly, an idea popped into her head. Why can't I learn how to cook for Li Yundong? Why can't I learn how to cook for him? Come to think of it, with my intelligence I should be able to make some really good food, right? But what should I do? Su Chan thought for a moment. Then she remembered the crucian carp she had bought with Li Yundong at the supermarket. An idea popped into her head. I remember eating fish when I was cultivating with Shifu. Now I think I remember how to cook fish. Thinking of this, Su Chan ran to the kitchen with a smile on her face. She pulled Li Yundong's arm and said coquettishly, Yundong. Chapter 37. Why do you want to cook all of a sudden? Li Yundong asked curiously. Su Chan's voice was so sweet that it made Li Yundong feel weak from head to toe. I just want to cook. Just let me. Li Yundong chuckled. What? Do you feel bad seeing me busy around here? Seeing that Li Yundong was so considerate, Su Chan quickly nodded her head like a chick pecking at rice. Her watery eyes were wide open, full of expectation. Li Yundong brought his face closer to hers. If you feel bad, just give me a kiss, he said with a smile. Forget about cooking. There's too much smoke in here. I don't want to ruin your skin. Su Chan shook Li Yundong's hand. No. I want to cook a dish. All right. Don't shake me. What do you want to cook? Egg fried rice? Egg fried rice? Egg fried eggs? You're not going to cook egg fried rice, are you? You're the one who's going to cook egg fried rice. Su Chan huffed. Li Yundong chuckled. There's no skill involved in cooking. It's easy for you to learn. Su Chan was a little upset. I know how to cook. You're underestimating me. Li Yundong saw that the girl was unhappy, so he quickly coaxed. Fine, you know how to cook. What do you want to cook? Su Chan's anger turned to joy. I want to cook braised crucian carp. Li Yundong was a little surprised. Oh, I really did underestimate you. You know how to cook braised crucian carp? Su Chan nodded proudly as if she had already cooked the most delicious dish in the world. Of course. Who do you think you are? Li Yundong looked at Su Chan amused. He took out the crucian carp from the fridge and said, All right. Let's see what a great chef can do. Su Chan rolled up her sleeves. I'm going to let you broaden your horizons today. Then she picked up the knife and glared at Li Yundong as if she had seen her mortal enemy. Then, with a shout, she chopped the crucian carp on the chopping board horizontally. With a clang, the fish was chopped into 2 halves. Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Who cuts a fish like that? Could it be roasted fish? Li Yundong pressed his forehead and said, "My little lady, this method of cutting carps is very rare." Su Chan turned around and made a face at him. My hand just shook. Li Yundong chuckled dryly. All right. Just a little bit. Don't shake your hands again later." Su Chan raised the kitchen knife in her hand and threatened him fiercely. Say it again. Say it again." Li Yundong quickly raised his hands. I'll shut up. Su Chan returned to the court with a snort. "That's more like it." After saying that, she gestured with the blade of her knife at the carp that had been cut in half and chopped it again. This time, the saber chopped vertically, splitting the head and the tail into two. He grimaced as he watched. Just as he was about to speak, the chopping board under the fish suddenly fell to the ground with a clang. It had been split into several pieces by Su Chan. Oh. Li Yundong sucked in a breath of cold air. He picked up the chopping board from the floor and gave Su Chan a thumbs up. "Great knife skills, heroine." Su Chan's cheeks were a little red. "I was a little nervous with you standing here, so I used a little more strength." Li Yundong retreated to the kitchen door. "I'll stand here, okay?" Su Chan was trying to recall the last time she and her master had cooked fish together. She couldn't help but feel a little flustered. Shush, she said. Li Yundong shut his mouth, but when he saw Su Chan running around in front of the stove like a headless fly, he didn't know what she wanted to do. He couldn't help but say, "Stop running around. My head is dizzy because of you." "Where did you hide the salt?" Su Chan said angrily. Li Yundong smiled bitterly. "In the shelf on your right." "Hey, that's pepper powder." "Hey, that's chili powder. Can't you tell the difference between red and white? Are you color blind? Come on, is it that hard to find salt?" Li Yundong couldn't stand it anymore. He walked over to Su Chan and took the salt jar. Su Chan took the salt shaker from his hand, but she felt a little embarrassed by his nagging. She turned around, pouted and shoved him back all the way to the door. She stood against the wall. "Stay here," she said. "Don't go any further," Li Yundong said. Then she stormed back into the kitchen, then back out again. She put her hands on her hips and yelled, "And don't talk." Li Yundong shook his head and smiled bitterly. This girl sure has a strong ego. He leaned against the wall and watched Su Chan walk around the kitchen for a while, then start to scratch her ears and cheeks and jump up and down again. He had no idea why she was so worried. After a while, Su Chan couldn't stand it anymore. She rushed out and stomped her feet. "Hey, you see I'm in trouble? Why don't you help me?" Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You told me not to talk. You can talk now?" Su Chan said. Li Yundong resisted the urge to laugh. "Fine," he said. "What can you do in there that you can't handle?" Su Chan's cheeks turned red. "How do I start a fire?" she asked shyly. Li Yundong burst out laughing and reached out to ruffle Su Chan's hair. Su Chan yelped and jumped away, covering her head with her hands. She bared her teeth at Li Yundong. "You're so annoying," she said. Li Yundong took Su Chan's hand with a smile and led her to the gas stove. He flicked the switch and pointed at the automatically lit fire. "Do you see that?" he said. "You know how to use it, right?" Su Chan's eyes widened. She stared at the blue flame on the gas stove. She was surprised and curious, as if she couldn't understand how a fire could be made out of thin air. When Su Chan came back to her senses, she looked to the side and saw Li Yundong standing there with a smile on his face. There was a hint of mockery in his eyes. She blushed and pushed Li Yundong out again. This time she pushed him into the living room. "Wait here," she said. "I won't let you in until I'm done cooking." Li Yundong shook his head and smiled. He watched Su Chan rush into the kitchen. Then he heard a bang. Su Chan slammed the door shut. He was bored in the living room, so he turned on the TV. He realized that even though he had thrown away the broken TV, he hadn't bought a new one yet. Li Yundong said to himself. "I need to buy a new TV tonight. Otherwise, the landlord will come and see me." After making sure that the kitchen door was closed, Su Chan walked over to the gas stove, which was still burning. She waved her hand at the burning coal, and with a whoosh, the flame jumped into her palm. Su Chan played with the blue flame for a while. Then she lost interest. "I thought it was a powerful flame, but it's so lame. It's nothing compared to the Samadhi true fire." Su Chan crushed the leaping flames in her palm and continued to torment the crucian carp. However, she did not notice that the switch on the gas stove was still turned on, and the gas was still silently spilling out. Li Yundong, who was in the living room, had no idea what was going on. He had just laid down on the carpet and was about to take a break when he heard a knock on the door. He got up immediately. "Who is it?" Li Yundong was surprised. He didn't have many friends on campus, and he hadn't even stayed in the dormitory for a day during his first year of university. Basically, no one knew that he lived here. Who would be looking for me at this time? Li Yundong looked through the peephole and he almost fainted. A fat, big-eared woman was standing outside the door. She looked impatient and unscrupulous. It was the landlord. You can't talk about people in the day, but you can't talk about ghosts at night. Li Yundong looked at the empty TV wall, and then at the bowl-sized hole in the roof. He broke out in a cold sweat. He wanted to pretend that there was no one inside, but he saw through the peephole that the landlord had taken out her key and was about to open the door after knocking for a while. Li Yundong had no choice but to bite the bullet and open the door. As soon as he opened the door, he saw the landlord standing at the door in surprise. "Who are you?" she asked in a high-pitched voice. Li Yundong smiled. I'm Li Yundong." The landlord's eyes were full of surprise. She looked Li Yundong up and down from head to toe. She thought to herself, this kid is quite energetic after losing weight. But he's still dressed like this. She stood at the door, fanning herself with her hand. "I thought you weren't home. I called you so many times. Why didn't you pick up?" Li Yundong returned to the living room in surprise. He found his cell phone and checked it. Sure enough, there were a few missed calls. Sorry. Maybe I didn't hear them during the rehearsal today." Li Yundong didn't want the landlord to come in, so he didn't bring her shoes. "Why are you here today?" The landlord walked into the room and said, "Isn't your rent due in 10 days? I'm here to take a look and collect the rent. Also, I'll bring someone to look at the house." As soon as he finished speaking, a voice came from outside the door. A woman with a sweet voice said, "Oh, you're so annoying. What's so good about this place? Why do you have to live here? It's not like you don't have your own property." A man's voice laughed. "Isn't this a little remote? And it's quite quiet here." "Nonsense. I think you don't want your wife to know." "No way. It's not like you don't know that I'm in the middle of a divorce with my wife. It's not like you don't know that I only like you." You men all say one thing and mean another. Do you think I don't know that you have a lot of mistresses outside?" As the two of them talked, they walked to the door. Li Yundong took a closer look and saw that the first person who came in was a woman wearing a milky white miniskirt. Her two white thighs were very sexy. The woman wore heavy makeup and looked very beautiful, but he didn't know how she looked after removing her makeup. The woman was wearing high heels, and the first thing she saw was Li Yundong standing in the living room. Her eyes lit up and she thought to herself, this guy is not bad. Very handsome and sunny. Chapter 38. He saw that the woman beside him couldn't help but look at Li Yundong. Her eyes were full of curiosity, like a white bone demon that had seen Tang Seng's flesh and couldn't wait to eat it. The man was unhappy. He deliberately stood in front of the woman carelessly and put his arms around the woman's waist. He looked around as if he was showing off and began to pick at the mulberry tree and the locust tree. This house is not good. It's very shabby. The landlord next to him obviously regarded this man as her big financial backer and was ready to take advantage of him. She smiled apologetically and said, "Oh, Boss Zheng, you can't say that. This house was renovated last year. Look, I bought this carpet for more than 5,000 yuan. Oh, Li Yundong, why don't you take care of it? Look at how much hair has fallen off the carpet. No, I have to deduct your deposit." Li Yundong looked down and was full of complaints. "Where did the hair fall off? Are you looking for trouble?" The landlord hadn't noticed anything strange in the room yet. She turned to the nouveau riche and said with a smile, "Boss Zheng, this house is in a good location and has good lighting. It's a good deal." She was about to say something when Li Yundong interrupted. "Auntie, I didn't say that I don't want to renew the lease." The landlord turned around and looked Li Yundong up and down. There was a hint of disdain in her eyes. She thought to herself, "You poor student. You only rented this house for 2 months and you cut the price for half a day. You still pay the rent monthly. How can you compare to this big boss in front of me? He rents it for 2 years and he pays it in full." The landlord said in a strange tone, "Oh? Li Yundong, the rent is much higher than before. It's not the same price as before. And now the rent is paid every 6 months. Li Yundong interrupted her rudely, "I'll pay?" This sentence made the landlord choke and she couldn't say the rest of the words. Although she was a Philistine, she was not so shameless to fall out with others. She had no choice but to look at the nouveau riche, Boss Zheng. The short man walked up to Li Yundong and took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket. He took one out and handed it to Li Yundong. "Smoke?" Li Yundong waved his hand and smiled politely. "I don't smoke, thank you." Boss Zheng sneered. Which man doesn't smoke? After that, he put the cigarette in his mouth and lit it up. Let me tell you, young man, he said to Li Yundong, it's impossible for a man to not know how to smoke. You're still young and you haven't entered society yet, so you don't know what's going on. When you enter society, you will know the use of this small cigarette. Li Yundong secretly frowned as he listened to the upstart show off. He quietly distanced himself from him, using his body posture to signal, I don't want to talk to you. However, the nouveau riche didn't like Li Yundong very much and wanted to show off in front of him. Li Yundong took a step back and he also took a step forward. He took a drag on his cigarette, then blew out a smoke ring and said, this Furong Wang is getting more and more boring. Cigars are still the best. Last time I brought back a box of cigars from Colombia. That smell tsk. The nouveau riche showed off in front of Li Yundong. Li Yundong had a good temper, so he didn't argue with him. The beautiful woman that the nouveau riche had brought with him was very fond of Li Yundong. She didn't like him and wanted to help Li Yundong out. Come on, will you die if you don't show off? The nouveau riche didn't get angry. He laughed proudly and waved at the woman. Come here, come here. The woman was a little reluctant to go over. She glanced at Li Yundong and suddenly felt that standing next to this vulgar man with the temperament of a nouveau riche was simply disgusting. She twisted her body and walked over slowly. The man put his arm around her waist and showed off to Li Yundong. This is Lily. Do you know who she is? The woman named Lily subconsciously glanced at Li Yundong when the man put his arm around her waist. She didn't know why, but her cheeks actually turned red. She struggled out of his hand and said angrily, What are you doing? Be more respectful. There are people here. Boss Zheng laughed and pulled the woman into his arms. As if there was no one else around, he stood on tiptoe and kissed the woman's mouth. Li Yundong watched the man's effort to stand on tiptoe and couldn't help but marvel in his heart. He couldn't help but admire the man's skin. It was really at the level of the golden bell shield. The woman grabbed the man and pushed him away. She was a little angry. I'm going to be angry? Boss Zheng didn't care and stopped pestering the woman beside him. He turned his face and took another long drag of his cigarette. He said very arrogantly, Lily is the top beauty of our Tianan City Miss Beauty pageant. She used to be a serious undergraduate student at school. Li Yundong sneered in his heart. So what? She was still taken by a pig like you. Thinking about this, Li Yundong's eyes swept over the woman. The woman happened to look at him. Their eyes met and then they both looked away. Since Li Yundong had Su Chan by his side, he regarded all the beauties in the world as floating clouds. Therefore, there was not a trace of affection in his eyes when he looked at the woman. Instead, there was a faint contempt in his eyes for this kind of woman who clung to the rich. Women were sensitive, and as a mistress they were naturally more sensitive. As soon as she saw Li Yundong's gaze, the woman's whole body trembled. Her eyes darkened and she stood there in a daze. However, the man beside her didn't seem to notice it at all. He just kept bragging to Li Yundong about Lily's beauty. He said, salivating, Damn, you don't know. When I first saw Lily, it was really like Dong Yong seeing the seven fairies. My eyes were glued to her. I say, young man, you have to work harder. If you don't have money these days, which woman will be with you? Don't you think so? Li Yundong was a little impatient, but he still kept a polite smile on his face. Yes, yes. Boss Zheng was still bragging, but suddenly the kitchen door opened with a clatter. Su Chan poked her head out and looked curiously at the people in the room. Then she blinked at Li Yundong and said, Yundong, is there someone in the house? Mr. Zheng, who was in the middle of bragging, saw Su Chan. He was so shocked that he didn't even notice the cigarette in his mouth fall to the carpet. His eyes were fixed on Su Chan, and the desire and greed in his eyes made it seem like he wanted to swallow her whole. As the mistress, Lily was also shocked when she saw Su Chan. At the same time, she felt extremely inferior. Not only in appearance but also in soul. She saw a pure and transparent soul in the girl's eyes. She was not like her own, which was muddy and dirty with money. The landlord was shocked and jealous when he saw Su Chan. He was shocked that Li Yundong had hidden such a beautiful girl in his house, but he was jealous because the girl's beauty was too amazing. What's the difference between a beautiful woman and a vixen? What man can stand it? The landlord thought to herself in shock. She turned around and looked at Li Yundong, trying to figure out how a poor student like him could hide such a beautiful girl in his house. Boss Zheng, who had been bragging all this time, finally came back to his senses. He remembered how he had bragged about Lily's beauty in front of Li Yundong. His face turned purple and he couldn't say a word for a long time. The landlady saw the cigarette butt on the carpet and rushed over to pick it up. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly saw the empty television wall from the corner of her eye. Her plump body suddenly froze. Oh no! Li Yundong thought to himself, then immediately covered his ears. The landlord let out a scream of over 200 decibels. The scream was so piercing that everyone in the room grimaced in pain. The landlord pointed at the television wall and screamed, "Where is my television?" Li Yundong quickly smiled apologetically. "Auntie, listen to me. I accidentally broke the television a few days ago. But don't worry, I'll replace it with a new one." The landlord put her hands on her hips and spat. "You'd better replace it tomorrow. I want the exact same one. I'll come and check it." Li Yundong knew that he was in the wrong, so he didn't say anything. He just nodded. Yes. But the landlord suddenly realized that something was wrong. She looked around the room to see if there was anything else wrong. When she looked up, she let out another scream of over 200 decibels. "Where's the chandelier? Where's the chandelier?" Li Yundong smiled bitterly. "The chandelier fell down 2 days ago. But don't worry, I'll fix it. It'll be the same as before." The landlord was so angry that her fat body trembled. "I'm not renting this house to you anymore." Boss Zheng, who had finally found an opportunity to disgust Li Yundong, immediately said, "I'll rent it. I'll pay you the rent right now." As he spoke, he pulled open his waist bag, revealing a large stack of brightly colored banknotes. Lily couldn't stand it anymore. She frowned and said, "I don't want to live here anymore." Then she rushed out of the door. Su Chan stared at the scene in front of her in a daze. "What happened?" she asked in confusion. Li Yundong was afraid that she would say something inappropriate, so he quickly waved at her and said, "Go do your thing. It's none of your business." Chapter 39. The landlady was dumbfounded. She had thought that she would be able to blackmail a rich man, but now her plan was ruined. "Thank goodness I'm a smooth talker. I didn't offend this guy completely." The landlady patted her chest and glanced at Li Yundong. But what she had said just now was a bit of a no-no. She could only keep a straight face and look around the room. Li Yundong was quick-witted. "Auntie, this was just an accident. I've been living here for almost a year now, and I haven't owed any utilities or rent, have I? Don't be so petty with a student like me. If you want to raise the rent, I'll pay for it. Is that okay?" The lady boss was both helpless and secretly happy. She hummed and said, "Well, I'll think about it." Li Yundong saw that there was hope, so he quickly struck while the iron was hot. "Auntie, I promise you that I won't damage your house again." The lady boss snorted twice and was about to speak when she suddenly smelled the smell of coal. Her nose twitched twice, and just as she was about to speak, she suddenly heard a loud bang from the kitchen. It was like a bomb had exploded, and all the windows in the living room and bedroom were shattered. The landlady was so scared that she fell to the ground. Her eyes were wide open, not knowing what had happened. Li Yundong ran toward the kitchen like a madman. "Su Chan," he yelled. He rushed to the kitchen and saw that only the frame of the glass door was left. Su Chan was standing in the kitchen with her back to him. He had no idea what had happened to her. Ignoring the shattered glass on the door frame, he covered his head with his hands and rushed in. Then he grabbed Su Chan's arms and turned her around. "Are you all right? Where did you hurt yourself?" he asked in a loud voice. "Are you all right? Where did you get hurt?" Su Chan's eyes widened. Su Chan's face was dark. She didn't look like she was hurt. She just stared blankly at Li Yundong. Li Yundong felt like his soul had left his body. He couldn't imagine what would happen to him if something happened to Su Chan. "Say something, Su Chan. Don't scare me like that." Li Yundong pinched Su Chan's philtrum with his fingers. Su Chan's body suddenly shivered when Li Yundong pinched her. Her eyes widened as she shouted, "What kind of powerful magical weapon is that? You scared me." Li Yundong felt that he must have heard wrong. He asked with a strange expression, What did you say?" Su Chan pointed at the gas stove, which had been blown to smithereens, and said with hostility and vigilance, "I touched this just now and it exploded. You scared me to death. Could it be the Maoshan sect's Fire Yang talisman and Thunder Explosion talisman?" Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So it was a gas explosion. Did this girl watch too many TV dramas? Li Yundong looked her up and down, still worried. "Are you sure you're not hurt?" Su Chan snorted and said arrogantly, "What can a powerful magical weapon like this do to me?" Li Yundong saw that she wasn't scathed. The kitchen was in a mess, but she wasn't hurt at all, so he felt relieved. Hearing the little girl still talking nonsense, he immediately knocked her on the forehead. Are you still talking nonsense? Are you making sarcastic remarks? As soon as he finished speaking, he saw the landlady standing in the doorway, staring blankly at the scene. The kitchen in front of the lady boss was a complete mess. It was too horrible to look at. The windows in the kitchen had been blown off, and there was a big hole in the gas stove. The fridge and the walls were all covered in blackened mess. The lady boss fell to the ground on her buttocks. With tears and snot streaming down her face, she shouted to the sky, "Oh my God, you two brats! Look at what you've done to my house. What do you want me to do?" Su Chan glanced at the landlady, then at Li Yundong. What happened to her? She asked in confusion. Did someone die in her house? Su Chan pointed a finger at the landlady. Hey, what are you crying for? It's not like this house belongs to you. The landlady's fat jiggled like a mountain when she heard that. If it's not mine, then it's yours, you little vixen. Can you afford to pay for what you've done to my house? Is this really her house? Su Chan asked meekly. She turned to Li Yundong with a skeptical look. Is this really her house? Li Yundong poked her forehead in annoyance. You're such an idiot, he said. Shut up and stand aside. Don't talk. Su Chan realized that she had caused trouble again. Wait, why did I say it again? How many times have I caused trouble already? Su Chan lowered her head, fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. She looked up at the kitchen, which looked like it had been bombed. She felt a little wronged. But how can you blame me for this? There were traps and magical weapons in the house, and they were caught off guard. Su Chan stood behind Li Yundong, too timid to speak. She looked like a young wife who had done something wrong. The landlady was crying so hard that it was as if everyone in her house had died. Li Yundong walked up to her with an apologetic look on his face. Auntie, he said apologetically, this all happened too suddenly. I didn't know that the gas would explode all of a sudden, but I do believe that we are partly to blame. I don't want to shirk my responsibility either. I'll pay for the damage to the TV, the chandelier, the other electrical appliances, and the damage to the house. When the lady boss heard this, her pig-like cries stopped abruptly. Her tears stopped as she said, You'll pay for it? That's fine. But I can't rent this house to you anymore. If you stay here any longer, you'll tear this house down. Li Yundong thought for a moment. He knew that it was impossible for him to stay here any longer, so he nodded. Fine. But Auntie, could you give me 7 days? I'll move out as soon as I find a place to live. The lady boss thought to herself, You bastard. Not only did you cause my sugar daddy to run away, but you also ruined my house. If I don't teach you a lesson, you really won't know how many eyes I have. The landlady sneered. 7 days? Dream on. Move out today. Li Yundong was both shocked and angry. Today? How is that possible? I have so many things here. The landlady snorted. I don't care. I don't want to see you living in this house for even a day. Move out now or I'll call someone to throw all your stuff out. Li Yundong knew that he was in the wrong, but he couldn't stop the landlady from pushing him too far. No matter how good-tempered he was, he couldn't take it anymore. Don't you bully me? The landlady put her hands on her hips and pointed at the house. I bully you? Take a look at this house for yourself. I bully you? Cut the crap and move out. All right. Not a penny less. Otherwise, I'll call the police and send you to the police station. Su Chan, who was standing beside Li Yundong, couldn't stand it anymore. She raised her head and was about to say something, but Li Yundong glared at her. The little fox jumped in fright and retracted her head. She mumbled something under her breath, but no one knew what she was saying. Li Yundong remembered that Su Chan didn't even have an ID. She was a typical undocumented resident. If she was arrested and sent to the police station, she might get into big trouble. So he swallowed his anger and said, Auntie, can you at least give me some time to relax? Where am I supposed to find a place to live now? The landlady sneered. She was determined to chase the bastard away. There are so many motels around the school these days, she said. You can find a place to live if you don't want to. Hurry up and pack your stuff and get out of here. Li Yundong took a deep breath and said stubbornly, Just give me 1 more day. I'll move out tomorrow. Now you want me to drag a lot of things and take a girl with me. Where am I going? The landlady stomped her feet and cursed. So you know that, you son of a bitch. You're so young you haven't even grown your feathers yet. You look so poor, yet you want to act like a prostitute? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself? What the hell do you think you are? Pay me and get out of here or I'll call the police to arrest you. The fire in Li Yundong's chest suddenly rose. He was furious. He raised his fist and clenched his fingers so hard that they creaked. He wished he could punch the lady boss into meat paste. Seeing Li Yundong's expression, the lady boss rushed out of the room and sat down in the hallway of the building, crying, "Murder! Murder! This guy messed up my house and now he wants to kill me to shut me up." Li Yundong said, "Murder? Come and take a look. There's no justice in this world anymore." By then all the neighbors had come out to watch the commotion. People from upstairs and downstairs had come out to watch the commotion. They crowded the hallway and pointed at Li Yundong and Suchan. Suchan was angry and sad at the same time. She was angry because the landlady was so aggressive and unreasonable. She was sad because she had caused too much trouble for Li Yundong this time. Li Yundong stood where he was, panting heavily through his nose. His face alternated between blue and white, and his expression was uncertain. After a while, he suppressed the murderous glint in his eyes. He took a deep breath and smiled coldly. "Suchan?" "Yeah," Suchan answered in a low voice. "Wait here for me," Li Yundong said, then went into his bedroom and grabbed his bankbook. "I'm going to withdraw the money," he said coldly to the landlady. "How much do you want me to pay?" "I'll pay. But don't you dare ask for too much. Otherwise, I'll make sure you suffer even if I have to go to the police." The landlady was a little scared when she saw Li Yundong's expression. But then she remembered that there were so many people in the hallway watching the commotion. She put her hands on her hips and calculated in her mind. Then she held up 5 fingers. 50,000. Chapter 40. "Hey landlady, you're too black-hearted. It's just the kitchen, isn't it? It only costs a few thousand yuan to renovate it. Plus the appliances, it's only about 10,000 yuan. Yeah, he's just a student. Where did he get so much money?" "That's right." The landlady was frightened by Li Yundong. Her voice trembled. "What do you want? Put me down. We can talk about it." Li Yundong sneered. "Think carefully before you speak. How much do you want?" The landlady did some serious calculations. With the TV, the chandelier, the renovation of the roof and the kitchen, she estimated that it would cost at least 20,000 yuan. It would be a little difficult for the student to come up with such a small amount of money. But if she asked for too much, he would be driven to desperation and she would lose even more. The landlady gritted her teeth and said, 20,000 yuan, no less. Li Yundong thought it was an acceptable amount. He didn't want to make a big deal out of this, so he put the landlady down and said, "Okay. Wait here. I'll go get the money." After that, Li Yundong entered the house and said to Suchan, who was standing in the room at a loss, "Wait for me here. I'll be back soon." Suchan opened her mouth to say something, but in the end she didn't. She just said timidly, "You come back soon?" Li Yundong nodded at her, took the bank card and went out. Everyone in the hallway was shocked by Suchan's beauty, especially the men, who pretended to look into the room inadvertently. Suchan was annoyed by everyone's stares, so she hid in the bedroom, closed the door tightly, and hid like an ostrich. As soon as she entered the door, she was filled with regret and sadness. Her fingers were twisted together and tears were about to fall. Why is this happening? Am I going to leave this place in the future? Suchan looked around. The first time she came to the secular world, she had spent her time in this place. Subconsciously, she not only had a strong dependence on Li Yundong, but also a strong attachment to the place where she lived. The thought that she would not be in this place in the future made Suchan's heart feel suffocated. She stayed in the room for a long time, waiting for Li Yundong to come back. She couldn't sit still anymore, so she opened the door and ran out of the living room to see if Li Yundong was back. But as soon as she came out, she heard the people in the corridor whispering, Hey, she's out, she's out. TSK, so beautiful. Yeah, the girl is so beautiful. She's really a vixen. Which man can stand it? I can't have this kind of girl. Otherwise there will be endless disasters. Haven't you heard of the saying femme fatale? Most of the people who were talking were women. They were jealous of Suchan's beauty, so they secretly made up stories about her. The men couldn't wait to make Suchan their own, so why would they care about a femme fatale? However, they pretended to be sanctimonious and couldn't help but agree, yes, it's too flirtatious. I don't dare to take it. I can't control myself. What if I wear a green hat in the future? In the living room, Suchan felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. She thought, did Li Yundong really leave me here? Will he despise me for causing trouble for him? Suchan fidgeted anxiously at the thought. Most of the women in the world who weren't good-looking hated those who dressed up coquettishly and seduced men, especially their own men. Even though Su Chan hadn't seduced the landlord's man, the landlady's heart was filled with hatred whenever she saw Su Chan. She hated her youth, hated her beauty, hated her figure, and hated her flirtatious ways. She hated Su Chan's youth, her beauty, her figure, and her flirtatious behavior. The boss gave Su Chan a sideways glance. Don't even think about it. If I were a man, I wouldn't take you with me even if I had to leave. Look at you. You're a troublemaker. Su Chan's eyes were filled with tears. Li Yundong won't do that, she yelled at the boss. The boss laughed. Is that so? Even if he doesn't do it now, he'll do it sooner or later. Anyway, if you want to seduce someone, you should go seduce the rich ones. What's the point of seducing a poor student? What's so great about it? Does it give you a sense of accomplishment? Su Chan was shaking with anger. If she hadn't been afraid of causing more trouble for Li Yundong, she would have killed the fat woman on the spot. Su Chan wiped away her tears and murmured in a low voice. It sounded like she was talking to herself, but it was more like she was trying to cheer herself up. Yundong won't leave me behind. He won't leave me behind. But the more Su Chan thought about it, the more she realized that what these people were saying made sense. She didn't know anything at all. The only thing she knew was cultivation, but it was useless in this world. All she wanted to do was cook for Li Yundong. The more Su Chan thought about it, the more scared she became. She waited in the living room, alone and scared like a lost lamb. Su Chan clenched her fists tightly. Tears threatened to fall at any moment, but every time a tear was about to fall, Su Chan stubbornly sniffled and threw her head back, as if trying to prove something to Su Chan. Just when Su Chan was about to give in, Li Yundong returned with a paper bag in his hand. He waved it in front of the landlord. I'm going in to get a pen and paper. Let's sign a contract. Li Yundong went into his bedroom to look for a pen and paper. As soon as Li Yundong entered the bedroom, Su Chan followed him. As soon as they entered the room, Su Chan threw her arms around him and burst into tears. What's wrong? Li Yundong asked as he wiped away Su Chan's tears for her. What happened? Su Chan sobbed. They said that you don't want me anymore. Li Yundong's face darkened. They've gone too far. I'm fine with them bullying me, but they're bullying you too. This is intolerable. Li Yundong was about to go out and cause trouble, but Su Chan pulled him back. The little fox wiped the tears off her face and sniffled. As she cried, she said, I don't know anything. My mouth is clumsy and my limbs are clumsy. I can't help you with anything, and I only cause trouble and trouble for you. Then Su Chan looked up at him with teary eyes. Will you despise me? She asked. Will you hate me? Li Yundong's gaze softened. He used his hand to gently wipe away the pearl-like tears on Su Chan's round, jade-like face. I'm not that tall or handsome. I don't come from a rich family and I'm not very capable either. I can't give you good food and clothes, and I might not even be able to afford a house in the future, let alone a BMW or a car befitting your status. Will you despise me? Su Chan looked at him and shook her head. No, that's not it. You're the nicest person in the world. You're the nicest person in the world. Why would I despise you? Li Yundong smiled and pinched Su Chan's cute little nose. Then I won't despise you either. Don't worry. Su Chan stared at Li Yundong. There was a hint of joy in her eyes, but there were still tears at the corner of her mouth. Really? She asked weakly. Li Yundong patted Su Chan's head. Really? He said gently. Unless you want to leave on your own, I won't despise you even if you poke a hole in the sky. Su Chan's tears turned into a smile. The smile on her face was as bright as a flower, but the tears in her eyes kept falling like pearls from a broken necklace. She threw herself into Li Yundong's arms and started crying again. Li Yundong smiled bitterly and patted Su Chan's back. Hey, what's wrong? Why are you still crying? I don't know, Su Chan said coquettishly. I just feel like crying. Li Yundong patted Su Chan's back and smiled. Alright, don't cry. I still need to write the contract. Pack your things later. We're leaving. Su Chan wriggled out of Li Yundong's arms. Where are we going? Li Yundong laughed. The world is big. Where can't we go? Why must we stay here and let people roll their eyes at us? Su Chan nodded. Yeah, I'll help you pack your things. After comforting Su Chan, Li Yundong opened the door and walked out. As soon as he came out, he saw many pairs of eyes staring at him. It was as if the two of them had done something shameful in the bedroom. Li Yundong sneered inwardly. Ignoring the people around him, he wrote down the contract he had discussed with the landlord in the living room and tossed it to the landlord. Take a look at it yourself. If you agree, then sign the contract. I'll give you the money and we'll leave immediately. The landlord took the contract and read it a few times. Then she slapped her thigh. Good. You're straightforward, so am I. Give me a pen. Li Yundong watched the lady boss sign the contract, then put it away and handed the money to the lady boss. He went into the house to pack up his things, and then left the apartment where he had lived for nearly a year under the watchful eyes of everyone. Li Yundong saw that the lady boss had signed the contract. Before Li Yundong left, the landlord stood in the stairwell and sneered. Li Yundong, you've lived here for almost a year. Let me give you a piece of advice. Study hard. Don't try to keep a girl as a mistress at such a young age. That's for the rich. You can't afford it. A female tenant who had a crush on Li Yundong laughed. Boss, that's a little too much. How do you know that they're not mutually willing? After receiving the compensation from Li Yundong, the lady boss was not afraid at all. She sneered and said, Him? He's just a poor kid. He doesn't even have a lot of money on him. It's already good enough that he can afford to keep himself. How can he afford to keep a woman? I say, in a few days, this woman will run away with another man. As soon as Su Chan heard this, her head buzzed. She shouted excitedly as if she had lost control, Li Yundong is the person who treats me the best in the world. He will definitely become a great hero in the future. I won't leave him. The onlookers were stunned for a moment. Then they burst into laughter. Great hero? That's hilarious. Ouch, my stomach hurts. The landlord was laughing so hard that he was rocking back and forth. He wiped away the tears in the corner of his eyes. You're really bragging without a draft. You're talking about a great hero? That's hilarious. What era are we in? Great hero? Little girl, when you meet the real rich people, you'll know how stupid you are. Stop joking around. Su Chan's tears flowed down her cheeks. She clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. She wanted to rush up and teach the landlord a lesson, but a warm hand pressed down on her shoulder. Su Chan turned around and saw Li Yundong smiling at her with a warm smile. Silly girl, he said. Why are you so calculative with them? Tears streamed down Su Chan's cheeks. But you're so nice to me. Li Yundong smiled. Yeah. Isn't that what I'm supposed to do? Su Chan cried even harder when she heard Li Yundong's words. I believe that one day you'll become a great hero. I just believe that. Li Yundong still had a gentle smile on his face. This kind of smile was warm and tolerant, as if it could tolerate all the words and deeds of the little girl without limit. Well, I will. If you want me to be a big hero, I will work hard to be a big hero. Su Chan raised her head and looked at the boy in front of her with teary eyes. All of a sudden she had a strong urge. I must raise this boy in front of me into the world's top master and hero, so that I can show these snobs who look down on me in the future. Su Chan made up her mind. She wiped away her tears and grabbed Li Yundong's hand. Then she turned around and glared at the crowd of onlookers. Let's go. Li Yundong looked back and saw that most of the onlookers were gloating over his misfortune. Especially the men who saw that even though he was in dire straits, Su Chan was still stubbornly following him around. Their eyes were filled with jealousy and hatred. Li Yundong took one last look at the landlord and sneered in his heart. I don't believe that I, Li Yundong, can't make a name for myself. Just you wait and see. The crowd in the corridor watched as the two of them disappeared into the elevator. For a moment they whispered to each other, saying all sorts of nasty things. Only an old man sighed softly. Although his voice was soft, it clearly reached the ears of the crowd. Sigh, don't bully the young for being poor. Chapter 41. Li Yundong thought for a moment, then said, Let's stay at a hotel near the school for the night. We'll look for a house tomorrow. She lowered her head and followed him for a few steps. Don't you have class tomorrow? She asked, looking up at him. Li Yundong sighed. Still going to class? Tomorrow is self-study and a small class. Let's not go. Let's settle the house first. Su Chan nodded again and didn't say anything else. When they arrived at the hotel, Li Yundong took out his ID card and handed it to the receptionist at the front desk. The receptionist glanced at Li Yundong in amazement, then at Su Chan in shock. She clicked her tongue and thought to herself, this pair is a perfect match. But isn't this girl a little too pretty? Could she be a movie star? The receptionist looked at Li Yundong's ID card, then at him. Hello, she said hesitantly. You have to show your ID card here. Li Yundong smiled. This is my ID card. I'm just thinner than before. The waiter's eyes widened. He looked at the old ID card and then looked at the current Li Yundong. The fat boy on the old ID card was not handsome at all, and his eyes were even more lifeless. How could he be like now? His eyes were like electricity and his whole body was full of vitality? The receptionist looked at Li Yundong's ID card several times before helping him register. How many nights are you staying? Just one night, Li Yundong said. Single room or double room? The receptionist asked. Li Yundong looked back at Su Chan. Su Chan didn't know what was going on. She just blinked at him. Li Yundong even suspected that if he sold this girl, she would still help him count the money, right? Li Yundong wanted to get a single room and sleep with the girl. But after thinking about it, he decided against it. There was still a long way to go. He didn't want this girl to think that he was taking advantage of her. Otherwise he would lose a lot of money. Let's get a double room, Li Yundong said honestly. The receptionist rolled her eyes. Why are you pretending when you already got a room? Can't you just get a single room? She handed Li Yundong his ID and house number. 205, she said. Insert your card for water and electricity. Li Yundong brought Su Chan into his room and tossed everything on the floor. Then he threw himself onto the bed and sighed. Well, I guess I'll be homeless tonight. Su Chan also collapsed on the soft bedding, sniffed and said angrily, it doesn't smell as good as before. Li Yundong burst into laughter at the sight of her innocent expression. He crawled over and pinched Su Chan's nose. Idiot, he said. The blankets here change every day. How could there be any smell? Su Chan chuckled and dodged his attack. Then she picked up a pillow and tried to hit him with it. You're so annoying. Don't come near me. You keep pulling my nose. Li Yundong said with a smile. You won't let me, will you? All right, I'll creak you. As he spoke, he used his hands to rub the little fox's waist and armpits. However, the little fox was not very afraid. It just giggled and twisted its body, flapping its hands and feet. Between the two of them, one was a teenager who wasn't even 20 years old, and the other was a girl who didn't know much about the world. Both of them had the temperament of a teenager. Even though they had a belly full of resentment before, they had now forgotten all about it. Li Yundong and Su Chan fooled around on the bed for a while until they collapsed on the bed, gasping for breath. They stared at each other with wide eyes. All right, Li Yundong said with a smile. Now the two of us depend on each other. He reached out and brushed a lock of hair from Su Chan's forehead. Even though Li Yundong's words sounded bleak, Su Chan's heart was filled with an indescribable sweetness and warmth. She hugged Li Yundong's arm tightly and said in a sweet voice, From today onwards, I won't cause you any more trouble. If you don't let me talk, I won't talk. If you don't want me to do anything, I won't do anything. I'll be a good girl. But you can't abandon me. You can't starve me. You can't leave me all alone. Li Yundong recalled how Su Chan had hugged him and cried her heart out when he came back. She must have been scared out of her wits when he abandoned her. He stroked Su Chan's hair gently. I won't despise you. I won't starve you. I won't abandon you. I definitely won't abandon you. But I'm not going to do anything to you. You can say whatever you want and do whatever you want. I won't stop you. Su Chan's eyes widened. Why? My words always cause trouble for you. I just wanted to do you a favor, but... Su Chan lowered her head. Li Yundong lifted the girl's chin with his fingers, stared at her and said, Compared with your appearance, I prefer your straightforwardness and naivety. I like your innocence and cuteness. So, I don't want you to become a yes man just because of what happened today. That's not cute at all. Li Yundong put on a stern face. If you're not cute, he said, I won't like you anymore. The more Su Chan listened to him, the more tears welled up in her eyes. Her heart grew warmer and warmer. When he was done, she pouted and gave Li Yundong a resentful look. Why are you so nice to me? Li Yundong laughed and pinched Su Chan's nose. It's just the two of us now. If I'm not nice to you, who am I supposed to be nice to? Su Chan buried her head in Li Yundong's chest and pounded him with her fists. You're so annoying. You're so annoying. I hate you. I hate you. Why are you so nice to me? Li Yundong smiled bitterly. Is it a sin to be nice to you? Cough cough. Be gentle. You're going to punch my lungs out. What Li Yundong didn't know was that Su Chan had made up her mind to groom Li Yundong into a powerful master because of the landlord and the other's insults. But after she calmed down a little, she couldn't help but regret her decision. After all, if that was the case, the Renyuan Jindan would be completely out of her reach. The Renyuan Jindan was not a common Chinese medicine like the Luwei Dihuang pill that could be bought anywhere. In the Gizao sect of the Southern Taoist external alchemy sect, it could be said to be a divine pill that integrated the creation of heaven and earth and seized the power of the sun and moon. The Gizao sect, which mainly cultivated external alchemy, was good at refining all kinds of elixirs. Among them, the Tianyuan fairy pill, the Diyuan Jindan, and the Rinyuan Jindan were the most famous. There was a saying in the cultivation sects: there were no more elixirs below the 3 elixirs. This showed the magic of these 3 elixirs. The refining method of the Tianyuan fairy pill had been lost since the middle of the Ming dynasty. Whether it was Mount Hazao, Mount Longhu, or Mount Mao, no one had heard of anyone refining this pill in the 500 years since Liu Bowen in the early Ming dynasty. Although there were rumors in the cultivation sects that there was another Diyuan Jindan in Mount Hazao, in fact, since LV Chongyang in the Republic of China, no one had seen anyone from the Gizao sect in Mount Hazao become an earthly immortal by relying on the Diyuan Jindan and finally ascend to heaven. Therefore, below the 3 elixirs, only the Rinyuan Jindan was a living elixir. The others were all illusory legends. No matter how ordinary a cultivator's talent was, as long as they consumed this elixir, they would be able to become an itinerant immortal after cultivation. For the sake of this elixir, no less than 100 people from all the cultivation sects in the world had died. Little Fox had only been able to escape because her master had lured away those terrifying enemies. Otherwise, with her skills, she would have been smashed to pieces a long time ago. It would be a lie to say that Little Fox did not regret or hesitate to use such an elixir. But just as she was hesitating, Li Yundong's words melted her heart. She found that she could no longer harden her heart to deal with this boy. After crying for a while, the little fox sniffled a little. Not long after, she snuggled up in his arms and fell asleep. Li Yundong couldn't help but be stunned. He pushed the girl's shoulder and said, "Hey, don't sleep like that. You'll catch a cold. Lie down." Little Fox moaned and twisted her body. "It's comfortable to sleep like this. It's warm," she said, moaning as if she were sleep-talking. After that, she curled up and leaned into Li Yundong's arms. Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Hey, what am I supposed to do with you like this?" Little Fox ignored him. Instead, she shifted her head in a different direction and adjusted her body to a more comfortable position. Then she continued snoring softly. Li Yundong could feel the amazing elasticity and touch of the soft, sexy body of the little girl. "My little lady, do you see me as Lu Xiahui or Lu Xiachue? Aren't you afraid that I'll turn you into a beast?" After Li Yundong took the Rinyuan Jindan, the essence in his body was exuberant, not to mention that there was a beauty in his arms. Her skin was soft and smooth to the touch, and her fragrance assailed his nostrils. In such a situation, even Lu Xiaohui and Lu Xiaochue would be in high spirits, let alone a young and vigorous ordinary person like him. A war raged in Li Yundong's mind, and he couldn't help but think of a joke about being worse than a beast. A girl and a boy were sleeping in the same bed. The girl drew a line on the edge of the bed and said, "If you cross the line, you're a beast." In order not to be a beast, the boy had no choice but to endure until dawn. But the next day the girl still slapped him. "I didn't cross the line," the boy yelled, feeling wronged. "Then you're worse than a beast," the girl said. In Hamlet, Shakespeare said, "To be or not to be, that's a question worth thinking about." Li Yundong stared blankly at the little fox. "Beast?" he muttered under his breath. "Worse than a beast? That's a question worth pondering." Chapter 42. When Li Yundong saw Su Chan, he opened his eyes wide and said tiredly, "God bless you. You finally woke up? Get off me. My whole body is stiff." Su Chan quickly got up and massaged Li Yundong's back and shoulders. "Thank you for your hard work. When are we going out to see the house?" Li Yundong waved his hand and threw himself onto the bed, burying his head in a pillow. "Don't disturb me. Even if the sky falls, let me sleep for a while." As soon as he finished speaking, he started snoring. Su Chan was a little confused. Logically speaking, a person like Li Yundong with Jindan Qi shouldn't be this tired even if he didn't sleep for a night, right? She thought. But what she didn't know was that Li Yundong had spent the whole night fighting with his own desires. His essence, qi and blood had all gone to one place. No man could stand it after being hard all night. Su Chan tilted her head and thought for a while. She couldn't figure it out, so she ran into the bathroom to brush her teeth and wash her face. After tidying herself up, the little girl knelt on the edge of the bed and stared blankly at Li Yundong. She sat there for 15 minutes, bored. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore. She pushed Li Yundong with her hand. "All right, I've slept enough. Get up. Let's go look at the house. We're going to find a new home." "Oh my God, I just fell asleep. Let me sleep a little longer." Li Yundong complained incessantly. Su Chan pushed Li Yundong as if he was a small boat in the sea. No. How long is a little longer? Li Yundong snorted. Just a little longer. Su Chan said, no, the sun is shining on your butt. Then she pinched Li Yundong's nose with her hand and giggled. Li Yundong finally couldn't stand it anymore. He sat up with his head in his hands and said, do you want to kill me? You stinky girl. Su Chan didn't let go of his nose. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. The sun is rising from the east and shining on the earth. It's the best time to absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. But you're sleeping in here. Since Su Chan had made up her mind to start training Li Yundong, she consciously began to supervise his cultivation. He just wanted to sleep for a while longer, so he said in a daze, what do you mean by absorbing the ling qi of heaven and earth? I want to use yin to nourish yang. Su Chan's cheeks reddened. Get up, she said, smacking him. But Li Yundong was snoring like a dead pig. How could he get up? Helpless, the little fox rolled its eyes and plucked out a strand of hair the length of a finger. Circulating its qi, the strand of hair straightened like a needle. Su Chan thrust the needle into the Baihui point on the top of Li Yundong's head. The Baihui acupoint was the head of all acupoints. It was the place where yang qi gathered, and it was also the best place to regulate yuan qi. Li Yundong let out a loud howl and sprang up from the bed. He clutched his head and glared at Su Chan. Are you trying to murder me for my money? All right. You're awake? Su Chan giggled as she pulled his hand into her own. In the movie The Sound of the Wind, Old Ghost was tormented by Godfather Lu until he was on the brink of death. Even a needle in his head didn't stop him from waking up. Li Yundong was just sleepy. Once Li Yundong's Baihui acupoint was pierced, the yuan qi in his body surged. It was like he'd taken a stimulant. How could he still be sleepy? Li Yundong wiped his face and found that he really wasn't sleepy anymore. All right, he said helplessly. I'm scared of you. Let me wash my face and brush my teeth, then we'll go out. Instead, she pulled the curtains open to let in the sunlight. Then she pulled Li Yundong to sit cross-legged on the carpet. Sit here, she said. I'll give you a massage. Li Yundong nodded. The thought of Su Chan's massage technique made Li Yundong close his eyes in delight. This time, Su Chan used the same technique she used on Li Yundong, butterfly plucking flowers. From Su Chan's point of view, the best time for Li Yundong to cultivate was during the Z period, which was from 23 p.m. to 1 a.m. sharp. This was the time when the yin qi of heaven and earth gradually dissipated and the yang qi began to grow. In the cultivation sect's big and small circulatory cycle of inner alchemy, the Z period was also known as the winter solstice, meaning that it was the time to start a fire. Su Chan remembered clearly that in the cultivation classic wings of scripture she'd memorized, it said, the sun of yang is the beginning of life. For beginners like Li Yundong, the Z period, which was also the period of the winter solstice, was very important. Cultivation at this time was the most efficient. An ordinary cultivator only needed to circulate their qi for 1 or 2 hours, and they would be full of energy for the whole day. They wouldn't feel tired at all. If they could develop the ability to automatically cultivate at this time, then their cultivation would reach the next level. They would reach the point in Huandan Revival chapter. There is no need to wait for the winter solstice to refine alchemy. There is yang in the body. This meant that people didn't need to deliberately cultivate at the Z period. They had the purest yuan-yang qi in the world in their body, so they could cultivate whenever they wanted. This level meant that a person's small circulatory cycle of cultivation had a basic foundation, and they could begin to enter the next level, the big circulatory cycle of cultivation. The human body had 8 extraordinary meridians. The small circulatory cycle of cultivation focused on the Ren meridian and governing meridian, while the big circulatory cycle of cultivation focused on the remaining 6 extraordinary meridians, namely the Chong meridian, Dai meridian, Yin Wei meridian, Yang Wei meridian, Yin Heel meridian, and Yang Heel meridian, as well as the foot Shaoyin kidney meridian of the hands and feet. In other words, by cultivating these meridians, people could practice the qi condensation, which allowed them to gather qi at will, and the free will, which allowed them to use qi at will. Once he completed the 3 subjects of channel expansion, qi condensation, and free will, it would mean that Li Yundong would break through the middle level of the second heaven of qi cultivation and begin to advance to the higher level. Su Chan used a massage technique to help Li Yundong mobilize his yuan-yang qi. Although it wasn't the Z period, it was the period of time when the yang qi in the world was the most vital. Li Yundong felt that his body felt different from the last time. Last time he only felt that his whole body was comfortable, and it was limited to his flesh and meridians. But this time, Li Yundong felt that the dantian in his lower abdomen was burning, and his waist and kidneys seemed to be boiling water, as if they were boiling soup. Although he closed his eyes, he could still feel the golden light in front of him. Moreover, this golden light did not come from the outside, but seemed to shoot out from his eyes. Not only that, Li Yundong also felt a whistling sound behind his ears, as if there was a wind behind his ears. There was a cry that sounded like the cry of a vulture behind his head, and his whole body felt like waves were surging from his dantian to the top of his head. Every time the waves surged, his sinuses would twitch in a rhythmic manner. Li Yundong felt so good that he wanted to die, but Su Chan was so nervous that she didn't even dare to blink. She circled back and forth in front of and behind Li Yundong, and her fingers quickly pressed on the vital acupoints in front, back, hands and feet of Li Yundong. Her 5 fingers flew like a butterfly flying through flowers, so fast that they left after images. At this time, Li Yundong's Jindan Qi was breaking through the Ren meridian and governing meridian, breaking through to the other meridians. There was often only a fine line between the small Zhoutian and the great Zhoutian. Many Qi cultivators were often stuck at this point, and could only run their Qi through the Ren meridian and governing meridian, unable to move it to the other meridians such as the Chong meridian, the Dai meridian, and the foot Shaoyin kidney meridian. With her massage technique and the powerful Jindan Qi in his body, Su Chan wanted to help Li Yundong break through the small Zhoutian barrier and enter the great Zhoutian. She wanted to use her massage technique to help Li Yundong break through. But no one had expected that just as the huge Qi in Li Yundong's body was gathering above his head, like a dam storing water, ready to rush to other meridians, suddenly there was a knock on the door, and then a woman shouted at the door, "Clean up!" This time, Su Chan was suddenly stunned, and then the whole cultivation failed. Without Su Chan's guidance, the vigorous Jinqi that had accumulated above Li Yundong's head only stayed for a moment, then immediately went back to where it came from, disappearing completely in an instant. But the process of this Qi flowing back could also be extremely stimulating. Li Yundong's body trembled, and he let out a loud and long sigh of lust. To the attendant at the door, this sound sounded like the sound a man made when he was having sex with a woman. The attendant's cheeks suddenly turned red and she cursed in a low voice, "How shameless! How can you have sex so early in the morning?" Then she went to another room, knocked on the door and said, "Clean up." How could Su Chan know about this? She pouted, very unhappy that her practice was interrupted at this time, and her efforts were wasted. She thought to herself, if it's between midnight and midnight, first of all, no one will disturb me, and second of all, the Qi in Li Yundong's body will be stronger and purer, and the time it takes to break through will be shorter. Thinking of this, Su Chan couldn't help but think of something her master had said, cultivation should be done early. This early was not only early in the age but also early in the day. The plan of a day is in the morning. What a wise saying. At this time, Li Yundong came back to his senses and sighed. "Sigh, if you really can't make money with your massage skills, people won't starve to death in the future." Su Chan laughed and scolded, "What a loser. Hurry up, let's go see the house." Now Su Chan finally understood the pain of not having a stable place to live. For a cultivator to successfully practice cultivation, there were 5 prerequisites: Dharma, wealth, companion, land, and artifact. Li Yundong had the help of the Renyuan Jindan, as well as his support from the side. Dharma referred to the cultivation of the Tao. This was not a problem. As for financial resources, it seemed that Li Yundong could still cope with that. As for companionship, she and Li Yundong were now Tao companions, so this was not a problem. Dharma referred to the Dharma treasures. When cultivators fought, they mostly fought with Dharma treasures. Without Dharma treasures, it was like a warrior without a weapon. And land referred to the next thing that Li Yundong and Su Chan needed to solve the most: the problem of the residents. How could a cultivator not have a good place to practice cultivation? Chapter 43. However, Su Chan didn't think that way. The little fox believed that the location of a cultivation mansion was of utmost importance. First of all, the mansion had to be located in the north, facing south, and there had to be windows on the east side. The air had to be fresh and the field of vision couldn't be too narrow. Most importantly, the mansion had to be high up. Why does it have to be high up? Li Yundong asked as he led Su Chan out of a real estate agency. "I used to live in a 7-story house. That's high enough. Any higher and the elevator breaks? Wouldn't I die climbing to my death?" Su Chan wanted to explain to him, but she was afraid that she would reveal her identity. So she said, "Don't you think that if you live high and see high, your state of mind will be more open?" Li Yundong asked. Li Yundong smiled. "That's true. Fine. Since you like to live in a high place, we'll look for a high-rise one." Su Chan nodded and muttered in her heart, "Really, have you ever heard of any cultivator who hasn't cultivated in the deep mountains since ancient times? Which one of them didn't cultivate at the top of a mountain or halfway up it? Which one of them chose to live in a low-rise place? The environment and air quality of this city are so bad. Even the effects of cultivation are so bad." Su Chan grumbled, but she knew that she couldn't drag Li Yundong into the mountains. If she did, Li Yundong would have a mental breakdown. It wasn't easy to find a high-rise apartment. Li Yundong and Su Chan had gone to a few places, but they hadn't found a suitable one. Su Chan had basically shot them all down. Li Yundong was patient. He didn't have any requirements. As long as Su Chan was happy, he was happy. So he let her choose. At noon, the two of them arrived at a newly built residential area called Xanan Garden. Li Yundong was walking with Su Chan while eating a McDonald's teppanyaki burger when he heard a familiar voice. "Hey, what's wrong with you guys? I'm looking for Zheng Yuming. Get him out here. I don't believe he'll refuse to see me." Li Yundong turned his head and was instantly amused. "Hey, isn't this the mistress who was with the nouveau riche?" Li Yundong still remembered that this woman had been called Lily by boss Zheng. He couldn't help but laugh to himself. Is this the general name for all the mistresses in the world? Li Yundong didn't want to watch the fun, but when Su Chan glanced at the geographical location of Xanan Garden, her eyes suddenly lit up. Then she looked at the direction of the buildings in the community, her face filled with joy, and she blurted out, "This place is not bad." Li Yundong smiled bitterly and said, "Oh, my little lady, you finally found a house you like? But this is a new residential area, and houses are not for rent, only for sale. I can't afford it." As soon as Li Yundong and Su Chan spoke, the mistress, Li Li, turned her head. She froze for a moment when she saw the two of them, and the arrogance she'd had when she'd been talking in a loud voice faded away. Lily took out a mobile phone from her LV handbag and said to the security guards who didn't let her in, "You won't let me in? Alright, I'll call him now. Let's see if you guys will lose your jobs if he comes out." The security guards were just following orders, so how could they stand such threats? He smiled bitterly and was about to speak when he heard a loud voice. "Oh, Lily, what are you doing here?" Lily saw the man named Zheng Yuming, and immediately shouted at him, "If I didn't come here to look for you, would I have been able to find you?" A trace of displeasure flashed in Zheng Yuming's eyes, but when he saw Li Yundong and then Su Chan who was next to Li Yundong, his eyes lit up with desire. He laughed and walked over to them. "Oh, it's you again?" When Li Yundong saw the nouveau riche striding toward him, he immediately smiled bitterly and said, "Yes, why is it you again?" Zheng Yuming shook hands with Li Yundong in a friendly manner, but his eyes were fixed on Su Chan, as if he wanted to swallow her whole. After shaking hands with Li Yundong, he reached out to shake hands with Su Chan. How could Su Chan like this kind of person who reeked of money? She just pulled her hand behind her back, hid behind Li Yundong and made a face. This kind of behavior was extremely impolite, but Su Chan was too beautiful and cute. Her behavior not only didn't make Zheng Yuming unhappy, but it also made his heart itch. Zheng Yuming ignored his mistress and said to Li Yundong enthusiastically, "Young man, what are you doing here? Looking at houses?" When Zheng Yuming said this, a trace of contempt and disdain flashed in his eyes. He really didn't believe that Li Yundong, who lived in a rented house before, could afford a house here. Li Yundong smiled and said, "By the way, is this house yours?" Zheng Yuming laughed and said proudly, whatever you want, whatever you want. Do you want to come in and have a look? I'll give you a discount. As the saying goes, strangers at first, friends at second. We're acquaintances anyway." Li Yundong was about to speak, but Su Chan's eyes suddenly lit up. "How much is the highest house here?" Hearing Su Chan's question, Zheng Yuming's heart trembled with surprise. He took a deep breath and said, 13,000 yuan per square meter. Of course, if a beautiful lady like you wants to buy it, I can give you a discount. 10,000 yuan per square meter, what do you think? You can't get a discount like this in the whole Tianan city. It's a very good discount, very honest." Li Yundong smiled bitterly in his heart. 10,000 yuan per square meter. Very good. I can buy a toilet. And it's a hairy one. Su Chan was disappointed when she heard this. She also knew that after Li Yundong lost money, he only had a little more than 80,000 yuan in his bank account. No matter how she looked at it, it was impossible for him to buy a house here with such a small amount of money. But she really liked the environment here. Because it was located in the suburbs, there was less exhaust gas pollution, and the air was good. Most importantly, the direction of the room and the height of the floor were ideal. Su Chan was a little reluctant to give up, so she asked again, "We can't afford it. Do you rent it?" "Rent it?" Zheng Yoming's mouth widened and he burst into laughter when he heard this. Su Chan was annoyed by his laughter. She pulled Li Yundong's arm and said, "Yundong, let's go." Zheng Yuming saw that she was about to leave. If she left, he might not be able to see her again. He quickly shouted, "Hey, I didn't say I wouldn't rent it." Su Chan pulled Li Yundong to a stop and turned around. "You're willing to rent it? What's the price?" Zheng Yuming thought for a moment. "This beauty is 2F** king amazing. I have to keep her in my sight. Otherwise, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I might as well lower the price. As long as she's willing to live in this community, I don't believe that with my wealth, I can't win over a poor guy like you." Zheng Yoming's calculation was very shrewd. He raised a finger looking like a philanthropist and said, "This number, 10,000 yuan per month?" Li Yundong gasped. Zheng Yuming said proudly, 1,000 yuan. I say, young man, we're fated people. You can choose any house in this community. If you like it, go to the sales center and tell them that I, Zheng Yuming, asked for it. You can rent it to you for 1,000 yuan per month. When Zheng Yuming said this, the expression on his face was as if he had just had sex with a woman. He looked like he was awesome because he was rich. Although Li Yundong thought this kind of person was disgusting, he was also moved by the price. In the house he had rented before, a bedroom, living room, and appliances cost 1,300 yuan per month. Zheng Yuming saw that Li Yundong was deep in thought. He thought that Li Yundong was worried about the lack of furniture and appliances in the house. He waved his hand again and revealed a look of salvation. "You're not worried about not having enough money to renovate the house, are you? Don't worry, I have a sample house on the roof that looks like a garden in the sky. It has everything you need. You can just pick up your bags and move in." This time, Li Yundong raised his head. No matter how stupid he was, he could smell the smell of a conspiracy. This guy is unaccountably solicitous. He's definitely hiding something. Li Yundong thought to himself. When he saw Zheng Yoming's eyes land on Su Chan from time to time, Li Yundong understood everything. He sneered to himself and clenched his fists. "You want to steal my woman? You're tired of living?" Li Yundong's anger rose. But Su Chan had no idea what these people were thinking. She tugged at Li Yundong's arm excitedly. "Let's go take a look. Let's go take a look." He didn't want to stay here for even a second longer, but he also didn't want to spoil the girl's fun. It wasn't easy for such a beautiful girl to run around with him under the hot sun all morning. Which girl nowadays could do this? Li Yundong turned his head and looked at Su Chan helplessly. He didn't want to stay here for a second longer, but he also didn't want to spoil the girl's fun. "Fine," Li Yundong said helplessly. But he had already made up his mind. No matter what, he wasn't going to give this nouveau riche a chance to steal his woman. Zheng Yuming was overjoyed when he heard that. "Hurry up and accompany my young man to the sales center," he said to the security guard. Then he remembered that there was still the matter of the mistress that had yet to be dealt with. Lily had come here today because she had heard that Zheng Yuming had found himself another woman. She was here to cause trouble, but she had been watching Zheng Yuming's performance from the sidelines. This was such a cold-blooded, callous man who liked the new and hated the old. I've been with him for a while now, but he's been ignoring me for so long just because he's taken a liking to a new woman. It really made one's heart turn cold. Lily glanced at Li Yundong and Su Chan. All of a sudden, her heart was filled with envy for the purity of their relationship. She didn't feel any jealousy at all. Instead, she secretly wished them well. "I hope you guys can always be happy like this. Don't let this materialistic society contaminate you." Lily looked at Zheng Yuming and sneered. "You still remember me? I thought you forgot about me." Zheng Yuming's mind was completely focused on Su Chan now. In his mind, Lily was a used shoe. Who would want to wear a used shoe? He was a little impatient in his heart, but Su Chan didn't go far. He suppressed his unhappiness and said, "How could I? Why did you come to see me today?" Lily had originally wanted to make a scene with him, but after experiencing such a thing, she was suddenly disheartened. She didn't want to get involved with such a man anymore. She looked around and said absent-mindedly, "I missed you, so I came to see you. By the way, why didn't I hear that you have a sample house of the Sky Garden? You haven't even taken me to see it." "No, I have to go see it." Chapter 44. Li Yundong was surprised to find that Zheng Yoming's mistress had followed him. He murmured to himself but didn't pay much attention to it. But when he followed the security guard to the sales center, the show began. A gorgeously dressed woman was walking out of Sinan Garden. The woman happened to see Zheng Yuming, who was chasing after Lily, and heard Zheng Yuming say breathlessly, "Oh Lily, don't be like this. I'm very busy with work. Don't you know that?" Lily sneered, "Did I ask you to accompany me, Boss Zheng?" When Zheng Yuming heard this, he was about to lose his temper, but he saw his other lover standing in the distance. His legs suddenly trembled. Li Yundong's eyes widened as he stood in the sales center and watched the beautiful woman approach him quickly. Then, with one hand on his waist and the other pointing at Lily, he screamed at Zheng Yuming, "Who is this?" Zheng Yuming's face turned pale. The sales office staff all snickered secretly, but pretended not to look at him. Lily looked at him from the corner of her eyes. "Who are you?" The beautiful woman looked like she was about to go berserk. "I'm his girlfriend." Lily sneered, "Oh? I thought you were his first wife." The beautiful woman went berserk. "Who do you think you are? A shameless slut with broken shoes dares to behave atrociously here?" Lily felt like she had been slapped in the face. Her eyes subconsciously glanced at Li Yundong, but she saw that the boy was standing far away, looking at them as if he was afraid that he would be polluted if he got too close to them. Lily's heart twisted. She smiled bitterly and said, "Yes, I am a shameless whore." "Then what are you? A shameless whore?" Everyone in the sales center, be it the staff or the customers, felt a chill run down their spines. What a fierce sentence. Su Chan looked at the two beautiful women in confusion. She turned her head and asked Li Yundong, "What's wrong with them? Why are they cursing each other as soon as they meet?" Li Yundong looked at Boss Zheng with a hint of schadenfreude. He was secretly happy, so he said in a low voice, "The mistress met the mistress." Li Yundong rubbed his chin and said with a heartless smile, "But which one of them is the mistress and which one is the mistress? That's a lot to study." Su Chan blinked her eyes and asked in confusion, "Xiao-san? Xiao-si? What do you mean?" Li Yundong looked at Su Chan and sighed. He stroked the girl's hair with his hand. "Nowadays, innocent girls like you are a national treasure," Su Chan said. "You're right. What does it mean?" Su Chan tugged on Li Yundong's arm and acted coquettishly. The real estate agent who was sitting next to her stared blankly at her adorable expression. Li Yundong lowered his voice and explained with a smile, "It's the third concubine who met the fourth concubine." "Oh," Su Chan said, but she still couldn't understand. "Then why are they fighting?" Li Yundong ruffled the girl's hair and said, "Don't ask. Just watch the show." Su Chan rubbed the top of her head and glared at him. "You're so annoying." While the two of them were talking, Little 3 and Little 4 had already taken up positions, ready to PK. The beauty suspected to be Little 4 couldn't beat Li Li, who was suspected to be Little 3. She put her hands on her hips and screamed at Zheng Yuming, "Yuming, tell me who she is today." Zheng Yuming obviously wanted to smooth things over, and he didn't want to make a big deal out of it in front of Su Chan, so he smiled apologetically and said, "Oh Mingming, she's the Li Tsongli I told you about." Li Tsongli sneered and said, "In the past when you were intimate, you called me Little Lily, but now you're calling me Li Tsongli. Zheng Yuming, I finally see you clearly. Okay, from now on you go your own way and I'll go my own way. But let me tell you Zheng Yuming, you can't give me less than a penny. Otherwise I'll reveal all your past scandals." Seeing that Li Tsongli had backed down, the beauty named Mingming immediately said arrogantly, "Ha, why are you so arrogant? Didn't you just give Zheng Yuming 2 abortions? What's the big deal? I've given Yuming 4 abortions. Even I'm not as arrogant as you are." "That's right, Yuming." She was lying on Zheng Yuming's shoulder, smiling as if she was asking for credit. Li Yundong was angry when he heard this. He hated the two women for not knowing how to cherish themselves, but he also hated the man for being shameless. He sneered and spat in a low voice, "Beast? Who would have thought that the sales clerks and sales clerks next to him would spit and curse? Animal?" Zheng Yuming pushed Mingming off his shoulder in annoyance and glanced at Li Yundong. Su Chan was staring at him with a disdainful sneer. Zheng Yuming felt as if someone had stepped on his tail. "What are you waiting for, Xiaobai?" He yelled at the sales lady standing in front of Li Yundong. "Take them to see the apartments." Xiaobai shivered and quickly said to Li Yundong, "Sir, please come with me." Li Yundong was in no mood to see the apartments, so he turned around and left. But Xiaobai begged him in a low voice, "Sir, please help me. If you leave, Boss Zheng will deduct my salary." Li Yundong was furious, but he didn't show it on his face. He followed Xiaobai out of the sales center. As soon as he and Su Chan left, they heard Zheng Yuming's angry roar. "Shut up, stupid bitch. I've had enough of you today." Mingming, who seemed to be Xiao Si, yelled in disbelief, "Are you scolding me? Not only am I scolding you today, but I'm also going to hit you." Then a series of slaps and cries rang out. Li Yundong couldn't help but ask the sales clerk, "Xiao Bai, is this how your boss treats women?" Xiao Bai curled her lips and said disdainfully, "That's not bad. 2 months ago the three of them bumped into each other. That was like Mars colliding with Earth. All of the female employees here who are slightly good-looking have been harassed by him before." Li Yundong was indignant. "None of you sued him?" Xiao Bai sneered. "Sue him? Oh. Is there really something that money can't solve these days?" Li Yundong choked on his breath. "This kind of thing is so infuriating. Why don't you quit? What's so good about working in a company like this?" Xiao Bai looked Li Yundong up and down, then looked at Su Chan enviously. "You guys are students, right?" Li Yundong nodded. "Sister Xiao Bai, how can you tell?" Xiao Bai smiled. "Don't call me Sister Xiao Bai. My name is Bai Xiaoyang. You can just call me Sister Xiaoyang. Other than students, there probably isn't anyone else who has such a simple idea like yours. It's so hard to find a job these days. So if you haven't found a good job yet, just bear with it for now." Li Yundong felt a little depressed, as if there was a knot in his heart that he couldn't vent. Bai Xiaoyang drove him and Su Chan to a 25-story building in the residential area in an electric car. Li Yundong had already made up his mind not to live there, but he was thinking about how to break the news to Su Chan without hurting her enthusiasm. When they reached the top floor, Bai Xiaoyang opened the door to the sample room. "Come in," she said to Li Yundong and Su Chan, "let me introduce you." As soon as Su Chan entered the room, she ignored Li Yundong. She jumped into the room and quickly looked around. Li Yundong smiled at Bai Xiaoyang. "Don't bother," he said. "We can look around by ourselves." Bai Xiaoyang didn't insist. "Okay," she said. "Look around by yourselves. I'll wait for you in the living room." Li Yundong smiled at her, then walked into a bedroom. "Su Chan?" he whispered to Su Chan, "do you really want to live here?" Li Yundong had to admit that the decoration of the sample room was very fashionable and Western style, with all the furniture and appliances in the bedroom. If Zheng Yuming hadn't been so disgusting, Li Yundong wouldn't have been able to find anything wrong with the place. Su Chan was carefully looking at the wall. She sniffed with her nose, then frowned. "There's a strange smell in here." Li Yundong sniffed. "There's no smell." Su Chan shook her head. Her expression was a little serious. "No, there's a very pungent smell." As she said that, she stretched out her finger and pressed it against the wall. As a cultivator, she naturally exerted a lot of strength when she pressed down with her finger. With this press, the wallpaper was smashed and a small hole appeared in the wall. Li Yundong's eyes widened. He thought that Su Chan was performing the Vajra finger zen. "Holy shit! What are you doing? Is this the Vajra finger zen?" Su Chan furrowed her brows and said angrily, "What finger zen? Look at this." Su Chan poked at the hole in the wall with her finger and waved at Li Yundong. Li Yundong moved closer to take a look, then tentatively poked his finger into the hole as well. When he exerted a little force, he realized that the inside of the wall was like a paste of mud. Even the slightest movement was enough to cause the dust to fall off. "Holy shit! What the hell is going on?" Li Yundong's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. "Even a shoddy construction can't be this bad, can it?" Su Chan sneered. "I can knock this house down with a single punch. Is this even habitable? Holy shit! What are you guys doing?" Bai Xiaoyang heard Li Yundong and Su Chan's movements. He ran over to have a look and was immediately scared out of his wits. Li Yundong turned around and sneered. "The quality of your house is terrible, isn't it? How can you poke a hole in the wall with just one finger?" Bai Xiaoyang scowled. "You're going to make me lose my job." Li Yundong flew into a rage. "You can always look for another job. But this kind of house will cost you your life. And if you lose your life, do you think you can ever get it back? Where is your conscience?" Li Yundong was so angry that Bai Xiaoyang's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but think, "Yeah, a house like this is going to be a problem sooner or later. Why do I have to stay in a place like this?" Her eyes flickered and she struggled for a while. Then she sighed deeply and shook her head. "Since things have come to this point, I won't hide it from you. The houses in Sinan Garden are all like this. Other people cut corners when building their houses, but they are still reinforced concrete structures. But the houses in our community are made of cardboard and stone sand. I suspect that this house will collapse at any time." Li Yundong was shocked and angry. How could something like this happen? How can you build a house like this? How are people supposed to live after they're sold? Is there no quality control? Bai Xiaoyang sneered. How are people supposed to live? As long as the house is sold, it's fine. Who cares about that? Li Yundong was furious. He gritted his teeth. How could he do such a heinous thing? Isn't Zheng Yuming afraid of retribution? Su Chan also said angrily, God should punish him. Retribution? If retribution works, then why do we need the police? Bai Xiaoyang looked at him and sighed. Forget it. You should leave now. I'll hand in my resignation later. What you said today woke me up. I can't stay here for long. By the way, if you're looking for a high-end rental house, I can recommend you a place. There's a high-end apartment in Hongxing New District not far from here, Bai Xiaoyang said. The conditions there are good, the environment is good, and the houses are good. The construction is solid and reliable. Li Yundong sulked. Thank you, he said to Bai Xiaoyang. I'll go and have a look. After the three of them walked out of the building, Bai Xiaoyang sat in the driver's seat and said to Li Yundong, You guys aren't going to take the car? Li Yundong shook his head. No, I'll walk by myself to relieve the anger in my heart. Bai Xiaoyang glanced at him and sighed. Then I'll leave first. Li Yundong waited for her to leave, then looked around to make sure that there was no one around. He took Su Chan to the back of the building and kicked the corner with his foot. Sure enough, there was a hole in the wall. After the whitewash had been kicked away, cardboard and sand were revealed inside. Li Yundong looked at Su Chan. Li Yundong felt a surge of anger rush to the top of his head. In a fit of rage, he punched the wall of the building. Damn it! This scum. He'll get retribution sooner or later. Li Yundong roared angrily. Su Chan, who was beside him, had a shocked look on her face. She pulled Li Yundong's arm and said, Hey. Li Yundong looked in the direction of her finger and saw that there was an obvious crack in the wall where he had punched. The crack was spreading in all directions, and in the blink of an eye, it had spread a few meters away. Li Yundong and Su Chan looked at each other in shock. This building is going to collapse? No way I can collapse a building with one punch? Is it that crazy? Li Yundong couldn't help but look at his fist. I'm not Ultraman, he said, stuttering. But on second thought, this was not an ordinary building. What could not happen in this building? Chapter 45. Thinking of this, Li Yundong grabbed Su Chan's hand and slowed down. Slow down. Li Yundong lowered his voice and said to Su Chan, Otherwise people will know that we did it. Su Chan wasn't stupid. She nodded obediently and held Li Yundong's arm tightly. From time to time she would glance back at Li Yundong. Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He knocked Su Chan's head. Idiot, can you be more stupid? You're basically carving the words on your face. I caused this building to collapse. Su Chan covered her head and said pitifully, I just want to know when it's going to collapse. Li Yundong laughed angrily. Are you looking forward to it collapsing? Su Chan nodded vigorously. Yeah. Li Yundong couldn't help but look back. At this time, from the outside, the building was still standing majestically in the same place. Li Yundong muttered to himself, What if such a tall building falls and hits me? What should I do? Wouldn't that be a tragedy? Thinking of this, Li Yundong and Su Chan couldn't help but speed up a few steps. It was as if they were being chased by a ghost. Their footsteps, which had been slow at first, became faster and faster. In the end, the two of them simply ran like crazy. When Li Yundong saw the real estate sales center, he immediately pulled Su Chan and slowed down. The two of them pretended that nothing had happened as they passed by the sales center. They saw that the fight between Xiao San and Xiao Si was still going on. These guys are really good at messing around. Li Yundong couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He looked over and saw that Ming Ming and Li Tsongli's clothes were a little messy, and their faces were red and blue. It was obvious that they had just gone through a fierce fight. Zheng Yuming wasn't any better. His face was full of fingernail scratches and his clothes were torn in some places. Zheng Yuming saw Li Yundong and Su Chan coming out of the residential area. He immediately squeezed out a smile and said, Hey little brother, you finished looking at the property so quickly? How was it? It's not bad, right? If you want to sign the contract and go through the procedures, you can find. Li Yundong didn't wait for him to finish. He interrupted him with a cold smile. No, Boss Zheng, we don't live here. Zheng Yuming had been full of confidence that Li Yundong and Su Chan would definitely stay, but he hadn't expected that they would refuse. The smile on his face froze and he shouted in anger, How could that be? Was the property price too high? Or is there something else? Li Yundong sneered and said, Actually, we don't think the house is very good. Zheng Yuming was like a rabbit whose tail had been stepped on. He jumped up and patted his chest hard with his palms, making loud thumping sounds. Go and ask around. The quality of my house here is indisputable. It's definitely the best. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a sudden loud bang. A 20-story building in the Xang'an district collapsed like a directional explosion. This was like a bolt from the blue, like a rolling thunder. Everyone's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets, and the surroundings were deathly silent. Only the foul smoke and dust soared into the sky, rolling and spreading. The expression on Zheng Yuming's face was wonderful, as if someone had slapped him hard in the face just when he was talking about something he was most proud of. Zheng Yuming's eyes bulged. Li Yundong even suspected that if this guy got excited, his eyeballs would fall to the ground with a squeak. Li Yundong reacted quickly. He pulled Su Chan and the two of them pretended to be panic-stricken and ran away. As they ran they shouted, "The building is collapsing, the building is collapsing, run away." It was as if they were afraid that the people on Earth would not know. As the two of them ran, they suddenly heard Zheng Yuming let out a hysterical shout behind them. This is impossible." Li Zhongli, who was suspected to be the mistress, let out a shrill laugh. Look at him, look at his building collapse. Zheng Yuming, this is retribution. Oh God, you've finally opened your eyes for a moment. Aha, evil will be punished and good will be rewarded. It's not that the time hasn't come yet. Zheng Yuming, your time has come. Li Yundong pulled Su Chan and quickly ran away from the scene of their crime. Li Zhongli's voice also gradually disappeared behind them. The two of them ran until they could no longer see the Xang'an district, then stopped. The two of them stared at each other, speechless. After a while they burst into laughter at the same time. Li Yundong felt that his heart was beating wildly, as if he had done a big bad thing. Moreover, he had been caught and sentenced to death immediately without a trial. But he had done a bad thing and his heart was full of joy. Su Chan was the same. She felt like a thief, but at the same time she felt an indescribable joy. After the two of them laughed quietly for a while, they finally couldn't help but laugh out loud, attracting the attention of passers-by. After laughing for a long time, Su Chan held back her laughter. She took Li Yundong's hand and whispered, "Yundong, will you get into trouble?" Li Yundong also held back his laughter. He thought for a moment with a straight face. No one has moved into that building yet. I'm benefiting mankind and enforcing justice on behalf of heaven. Su Chan giggled and said, "Good. This kind of person is full of evil tricks. It's so hateful." Li Yundong held the girl's hand tightly and thought to himself, the worst thing is that this guy wants to steal my property. Humph, if he dares to steal my property, I'll blow down your building. Thinking of this, Li Yundong felt that he had vented his anger, and it was indescribably refreshing. He laughed loudly, waved his hand and said energetically, "Come on, let's continue to look at the houses. Even if there is such a rubbish house, I'll blow it down." The two of them walked far away from the Xang'an district. Finally, they couldn't hide the pride in their hearts and the expression on their faces. Along the way they regarded themselves as chivalrous men who enforced justice on behalf of heaven. Their eyes were full of spirit as if they had done something great. Especially Li Yundong and Su Chan, who from time to time looked at each other and laughed in a way that only the two of them could understand. Fortunately, although the houses they looked at did not satisfy Su Chan, the quality of the houses was not as exquisite as the buildings built by Zheng Yuming. After walking for a while, the two of them went straight to Hongxing New District, which Bai Xiaoyang had introduced. As soon as they arrived at Hongxing New District, Su Chan's eyes lit up. In this district there was a building about 20 stories tall, which stood out from the crowd. The buildings around it were all small multi-story buildings with only 5 stories or so. This was the only high-rise building in the district. Not only did it have a wide view of the surroundings, but the building's orientation was also very standard. Su Chan couldn't wait to drag Li Yundong to see the houses. Li Yundong laughed and said, "Idiot, we need to find an agent first. Without an agent, do you know where there are houses and where there are no houses?" After saying that, Li Yundong dragged Su Chan to find an agent. After asking around, Li Yundong was shocked. The houses in this district were astonishingly expensive. There were no houses with 1 bedroom and 1 living room, and there were no houses with 2 bedrooms and 1 living room. There were only houses with 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms which happened to be on the top floor. Moreover, they met all of Su Chan's requirements in every aspect. Li Yundong's eyes widened. In his heart he said, "For 4,500? Are you robbing me?" My mom and dad gave me a month's worth of relief, and I've already eaten up the rent. Isn't that just like eating out of pocket? But when the agent showed Li Yundong and Su Chan around to see the houses on the top floor, Li Yundong felt that the 4,500 was worth it. The furniture and decorations in the house were almost all new, and the appliances were all there. It was as if Li Yundong could move in with just a bag. Su Chan wasn't the only one who liked the lighting and the layout of the house. Li Yundong also liked the rich Chinese-style decoration of the house. The agent was smart enough to notice that Li Yundong and Su Chan were only two people, so he figured that it would be difficult for them to afford the rent of such a big house. If you guys are short on funds, you can stay here for now, the agent said. Li Yundong didn't want other people to ruin his and Su Chan's two-person world, and Su Chan didn't want a third party to come between them. Su Chan dodged the agent and gently hooked her finger around Li Yundong's hand. Yundong, she begged in a low voice, here please? Please, I beg you. Li Yundong smiled and patted Su Chan's head. Don't worry. If you like it, I'll find a way to get you even the moon in the sky. If you say here, then here it is. Li Yundong calculated for a moment. Including the rent and the deposit, he would have to pay around 30,000 yuan a time. He still had 40,000 to 50,000 yuan left, which should be enough to support him and Su Chan for a while. It was almost summer vacation. If he worked part-time and his parents earned a few thousand yuan a month, he should be able to support himself and Su Chan. Su Chan was overjoyed when Li Yundong agreed. She hugged Li Yundong tightly and beamed. That's great. That's great. Li Yundong felt the softness and elasticity of Su Chan's chest. He suppressed his desire and impulses, then pointed at his cheek with a smile. Come on, give me a kiss. Su Chan glanced at the agent in the other room. No, she said shyly. There's someone here. Li Yundong didn't really expect to get a kiss, so he laughed. Okay, he said. Then when there's no one around, let's kiss as much as we want. Su Chan giggled. Her eyes were full of slyness and seduction. She blushed, twisted her waist, and ran out of the room. Her two braids swayed from side to side. You're so annoying. Li Yundong's whole body heated up under Su Chan's seductive gaze. He couldn't believe that he had been able to hold back his beastly urges last night. That was a miracle in the Guinness World Record. After paying the deposit, Li Yundong and Su Chan returned to the motel near the school to pick up their luggage. As they were leaving, Su Chan skipped ahead of them. Li Yundong, who was lagging behind, noticed that there was a girl in a pink dress staring at him from the gazebo in the garden of the community. Li Yundong looked at the girl and realized that she was about 15 or 16 years old. She had an indescribable air of elegance about her. Her hair was tied in a ponytail and her bright forehead was exposed. Her eyes were bright and sparkling. Li Yundong could feel something solid pressing against him wherever the girl's gaze landed. When Li Yundong's eyes met the girl's, it was as if two Mercedes-Benz trucks had crashed into each other. Both of them shuddered and withdrew their gazes. Li Yundong was shocked. There's actually a girl with such sharp eyes here? Who is she? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.